Okay.
July 28, 2020 at 7:02, web-based meeting hosted by Zoom. First on our agenda is a public hearing continued, Oakwoods LLC, Tim Draper, 11 units, Connecticut State Statute 8-30G, affordable housing, 35 days for public hearing 8/4/2020, 9 Good Hill Road. So Bob, if you'd be kind enough to read the memorandum.
Memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission from Beth Cavagna, Planning and Zoning Director, RE Staff Report, 9 Good Hill Road, date July 27, 2020. Oakwood, 9 Good Hill Road, 830G, 11 units. On or about June 17th, 2020, staff visited the site with the project engineer, Mike Masuko, property owner, Tim Draper stopped by and was informed that if the commission requested a site walk, the site should be mowed. Subsequently, the commission scheduled a site walk for July 19th, 2020. Upon entering the site, the project engineer, Masuko, it was noted that the site had not been cleared enough to ensure that the public and the commission members could safely enter. The site walk will need to be rescheduled when the site is accessible from the entryway to the rear of the property. The applicant has clarified the discrepancies in the deed, but we are still awaiting the history of the usual configuration of the property. We have received comments dated 7/27/20 from the town consulting engineer regarding the revisions dated 7/23/2020 by the applicant.
Thank you, Bob. All right, I guess, Mr. Mizuko, I'll turn this over to you. You're muted, Mike. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, Mike Mizuko, professional engineer, representing the applicant. My office is in Danbury. And we did receive that memorandum. We also received the memorandum from Wright Pierce regarding my response dated July 21st. And most of the stuff was acknowledged. There's a few minor things. I think one was with regard to blasting. I know that question came up quite a bit from the public as well. But if you want me to share the screen, I can kind of go over the site with regard to the blasting. Well, that there should be a lack of concern for blasting because the majority of the site is being filled and all of the buildings are being constructed as slab on grade. So the only thing that we have that's really deep is the sewer line or the sewer lateral out to the street over the high point.
Excuse me, Mike. David, would you please give him the capability of sharing a screen?
Screen sharing is enabled.
So as he speaks, he can go over it with the plan in front of us?
Yep,
Okay.
Screen sharing is enabled.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike.
That's okay, no problem. Okay, is everybody seeing that?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay, so zoomed in, I'm just going to pan over and we'll start over near the buildings. You can see this corner of the site is where that rock outcrop is, but you can look at the elevations. We have 516 existing grade runs across here. Our slab elevation's 517. We're about a foot over that grade. And again, these are not basements, they're just slab on grade. So even if you dug down here and you hit some ledge, you would just pour your footings on top of the ledge. Again, similarly with these units back here, we're digging down a couple of feet, but we don't expect, based on the test holes, we didn't hit ledge in any of the test holes that we dug. And most of this, in this area here where the storm drainage system is, this is all being raised up about 4 feet. So like I said, the only area of concern in terms of depth, any sort of depth that we're digging is in this area over that hump in the topography where this sewer is, the sewer line. But we do have a test hole right here, which is at approximately elevation 517, and we got down 7 feet. That puts us down about 510, which is just slightly above our inverts on the sewer. So we're pretty comfortable that we're not going to have any issues with ledge at all on the site. And I know there was, that the concern with this drainage pipe running underneath the slab, but, our position is that, whether it's off-site drainage or drainage from the building or roof drains, it's still drainage. And, we feel comfortable with running it underneath the slab, provided that it's properly constructed in terms of any organic material that's removed beneath the pipe, and that should be the same for the slab. Any material put back in underneath the pipe as well as the slab should be granular material and compacted every 8 to 12 inches. So, that being said, that will provide ample protection for essentially just a slab on grade.
Could I ask a question since he's in this corner of the area of the map?
Sure.
Mike, in regards to this area here, where you were just talking, you're showing a soil stockpile area.
Yep.
Close at the 520, 518, 520 mark. So this area isn't going to be disturbed?
We're just showing some soil stockpile there, but again, it's not proposed to be, lowered at all. Our finished grading, we're working, again, our slab is 517, and that grade right there is 517. So we're not planning to touch any of that.
Okay. So, and along with the pipe that you show there, what is the issue about not protecting it? I mean, that's how I'm looking at Wright Pierce's memo. I'm familiar with running pipes of this type of nature under a slab, but usually you have some kind of a sleeve or something, so in case the pipe needs to be replaced due to clogging or anything of that nature, or
Yeah, that's
Joe,
not really
Joe,
not
maybe
really
you can
true.
help me. Joe, can you help? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Joe Hausman from Wright Pierce.
Yeah, sorry, I was just searching for the unmuting button. Yes, Joe Hausman, Wright Pierce, one of the authors of the memo that was being discussed. So Mike had mentioned in his response that a properly constructed pipe, with all the proper bedding and backfill, like he's just talking about, should last a good long time. I slightly disagree with what he put back about how all pipe, even well-constructed pipe, can and will fail at some point. Obviously, what's the life expectancy of all equipment and things like that has a life expectancy. We usually in the world of sewers talk about maybe 50-year life expectancy or something like that. So at some point, some work will have to be done to this pipe. That pipe, is not going to live forever, undisturbed, working perfectly. And the other concern is even folks who take good care, installing pipes, it happens, gaskets get pinched or pipes don't get pushed fully home, and now those joints potentially could leak and could wash some of those fines and soil materials into the pipe. And if that were to happen underneath a slab over time, you could potentially create a void, pocket of void underneath that slab. And if it got bad enough, could that cause some potential undermining underneath that slab? A lack of foundation soils essentially underneath that slab, and could that cause an issue over time? That's kind of the general concern why, for things that are generally like drainage and sewer that originates inside the house, to get it outside the house going down through the slab is fairly typical. I don't disagree with that one bit. But when I see offsite drainage kind of coming underneath a slab and kind of underneath a building like that, that's where I start to feel like that's not as typical, and certainly is something that we should look at to try to either avoid or mitigate the potential risk to that property if something were to happen to that pipe. And that's kind of where our concern comes from, is why it's kind of hung on our comment list for for the last couple rounds.
Okay. And with sewer and water pipes, I mean, I know that they have gone through slabs of building, and there's an encasement or something that either one of you can answer that. Isn't there? you put it in some type of an encasement if it's running under a slab?
No, that's not usually the case. Typically for a sewer line, you're running a PVC line down. You're not encasing it in anything, and typically you're going to have branches off of that line for toilets and sinks and vents and other things like that. So it's totally difficult, very difficult to try to say you're going to sleeve it. And those lines, when you're dealing with buildings that are on slabs, that's how you have to do it. And
Okay.
a lot of times, especially in commercial construction with flat roofs, as I mentioned in the response letter, is that these lines come down within the building and they run out under slabs. That's, it's whether it's roof runoff or offsite runoff, it's water or sewer, it's water, it's a liquid. That's all you do is transporting liquid from one spot to another. And I agree with Joe that sometimes, you could get a bad joint or somebody doesn't connect it right or push it on all the way. Yeah, that's all about making sure that you're doing the job right from the get-go. That's why I said it's important that it's bedded properly, it's compacted properly, it's put together properly. These are all important things, as in any type of installation that's underground.
And again, I agree with 90% of what Mike said right there. My one disagreement to him would be he was talking about sewer pipes with connections, and that's for kind of piping internal. I agree with him that if it was drainage from the roof of this building or a sewer pipe that's plumbed from one of these units and it has to go out under the slab, it can't, you don't want a sewer pipe hanging out in the middle of, in the middle of the air. That has to go down through the slab. In a case like this where you have this storm drain pipe isn't getting connections from anything in units 1 and 2 that's running under, it's drainage from behind the building. I guess the roof drains, no, actually the roof drains aren't tying into this pipe. The roof drains tied into the other way, I believe. But it's the offsite, the drainage from the yard in the back. That's typically something that we route around buildings. We don't run that underneath buildings if we can avoid it. And if we have to do it, it's also a different potential flow rate in terms of the amount of flow generated from the larger areas potentially versus something like your toilet plumbing and your sink plumbing versus how much water a catch basin can take in during a thunderstorm or a heavy rain. So it's a couple different concerns there where something like an offsite drainage, I consider that a slightly different scenario than from a scenario where a flow is originating from inside the unit.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for letting me ask while you were over the corner.
Oh, no worries.
Beth, do you have any other questions?
While we were still in that corner, if I could just on the one thing I wanted to note with the ledge issue, and I don't believe you said this, but that pipe that you're talking about, the one that's running underneath the building from 1 and 2, I do believe that pipe would be slightly into ledge. I do believe you would have some ledge removal for that pipe trench, because I believe you've got the line shown there, Mike, in that corner. This is bottom of ledge. It runs kind of along what would be like a 511 contour, and the invert of that pipe is right in that 510, 511 range between the inlet and outlet. So I do believe you'll have a little bit of ledge removal for the installation of that pipe as shown. Just, I don't think it's not a major amount for any stretch of the reason, but there is some ledge that would probably need to come out for that pipe based on the plan, the way it looks right here.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of loose rock on that. It's more loose rock than anything in that area, and we're going down maybe a foot. Because you can see the manhole is pretty much at the 512 contour, and our inverts are 511.2, say 511. So it's less than a foot.
Okay, Mike, do you want to go through with the rest of your
Sure. I think, again, we talked about the blasting, we talked about the pipe under the building. Talked about I think that was really about it. There was just another comment about the watershed maps not showing the residences to the south of 9 Good Hill, which would be, let's see, oops. So it's in this area here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. The house south of our site is here. We didn't show the house, but we showed the driveway and we counted it as impervious area, but I don't specifically show it. Although if you're looking for, where those houses are in relationship, I think you get a pretty good picture, or at least a better picture on the area mapping that shows the property, and then it shows the buildings and impervious surfaces, a little more, I guess, a little more detail and more of the surrounding area. And then if you go down to, the wetlands inventory map, you get a pretty good aerial view of what's going on as well. I think that was about it, and it wasn't really much. And then the only other thing, Beth, that I can comment a little bit on in terms of the question about the lot and the configuration, I did speak to Matt Reynolds today from New England Land Surveying, and he was going to look into it. He couldn't remember. They did do the work on that cot to create that parcel A and parcel B.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking that it might have something to do with the way this is jogged here. It might have something to do with trying to fit the minimum square in there. But I need to wait to get his response back to be able to. I told him just to email me something, whatever he finds, so I can then at least forward that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think other than that, we did respond to all the other stuff in the letter with regard to the health department. We increasing the dumpster pad, the memorandum from Tom Villa regarding the changing of the clean out for the sewer line, instead of using clean outs, installing manholes, using manholes instead. So we did do that. We proposed the water line extending across the total site frontage, which includes the other loop around on the southern side of the site. The fire marshal asked for a fire hydrant, so we did add that. I'll show you. We added a hydrant in the island right here, right next to the dumpster. So as you come in, it's very accessible right there in that island. And the rest is just Wright Pierce letter. So
Okay.
I think that's really about it.
Okay, Pat, can I make some comments in response?
Absolutely.
To, the other departments' requests that they had made.
Yes.
One is in regard to the health department. Their memo, Mike, they asked for, and it's become pretty standard now, and it's always been a push and tug with the dumpster. Did you revise the dumpster pad to show a 12 by 10?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And also in their comments, they're requesting that the private wells serving 11, 5, and 7 be located. They say in regards to potential sources of pollution, they're concerned about sewer lines, catch basins, stormwater. Did you do that on the plan too?
I did. They sent me their whatever information they had in terms of well completion reports and sketches showing wells.
Great.
I just pulled them off of, the aerial views of the dwellings. So I showed the well for 11 and then 5 and 7. You can just barely see it at the top of the page here.
Thank you. Okay, that way I just want to make sure that we have everything together. So I don't have their final comments in response to that, but I'll be sure to get them.
Sure.
In regards to public utilities, the application, has that been approved by the Public Utilities Commission yet?
No.
No. because it's got to go to the Public Utilities Commission for the approval of the additional flow. I guess you have to ask for additional flow.
Okay.
And also, in regards to this, we ran into a problem with the previous application in regards to 49 Taylor Avenue. 49 Taylor Avenue was approved as an affordable housing project. And then after the applicant went to the Public Utilities Commission, there was an increase in the dollar amount that was involved with running the line up the road. And then at that time, he came back and did receive an additional 8 units or 9 units or whatever. In this agreement, what I believe the commission should do is whatever happens or whatever decision you make, that it is important to receive the Public Utilities Water Main Extension Agreement between the two parties before you make any kind of decision in relation to the application. So the applicant is fully aware of any expenses that are going to be involved with bringing the line forward. Also, could we go back to the stormwater management system for a sec? In regards to that, I know because I did attend a lot of the Inland Wetlands Commission meetings, and I am aware that it's not mentioned any longer in the request from Wright Pierce, but I do believe that a hydrodynamic separator or something of that nature should be incorporated in the plan for 2 reasons. One is that you have 2 issues in this area that are unique. You have wells and you have documented vernal pools and wetlands. Documentation was done by Eric Davidson, and I would like that to be incorporated into the record. In the instance of, and again, I compare it because it is a little bit closer, 49 Taylor Avenue, you had a similar system put in, but the final outlet point of that system went into the town's drainage system. This is not going into the town drainage system. This is being discharged. It is this particular type of system, from what I've read and I've seen how it works in the past, is very good at doing 2 functions, reducing runoff and recharging. But the point of the matter is you have a large parking area. There'll be parking for 26 cars within an area that has no stormwater town system in it. Similar to this type of parking lot being installed in an area such as Chimney Heights with wells and septics and things of that nature. And I think it is another important tool to ensure that there is no possible problems or pollutants that enter into any area that contains a well or a wetland surrounding it.
Well, I have to disagree with you, Beth, on a couple of things.
Okay.
The hydrodynamic separator doesn't reduce the quantity of runoff.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, well, you said it reduces runoff.
I'm sorry. I meant to say it's a secondary, it's a first measure used to reduce pollutants, meaning oil, grease, things of that nature.
Right. And I guess in certain cases, they're very applicable. I just don't see it here.
Okay,
And
we can agree to disagree.
yeah, I mean, the wells are up gradient from this.
Conti has a well, he's down below.
Well, no, this grade where the stormwater discharge is lower, than it rises up again because it's following the contour at this high point right here where our manhole is.
Okay, and the wetland?
So, yeah, that wetland is in a lower area. I don't know if that shows up on, yeah, you can see it here on the watershed map that this is flowing to this, where this storm drainage discharges, where that finger wetland is. And then that grade is running up and then runs back down again into Conti's. So you'd have to go, the water is never going to get over there in terms of being from a gradient and topography perspective.
And how deep is his well?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the sheets again.
And down farther from that area? Are there wells located there?
I think that when I walk down in there pretty far, and there's not really much down there because that just leads into more of that wetland, branches out and gets a little bit bigger as you go down gradient further, and
Mhm.
eventually it's going to get into some storm drainage system for the town.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We'll just say we agree to disagree.
Okay.
In regards to, can we move up to, can we put up your ENS control plan? I think that's site utilities and erosion.
Yep.
Okay. Go to the far right-hand corner of the plan. Talking about the proximity, I'd like to talk a little bit about the proximity of the soil piles that are located there.
Oh, in the front by the driveway?
In the front by the driveway, yes.
Yeah.
In regards to those piles, and just go over with us a little bit, the amount of fill that is going to be brought in.
Well, in this area here, there's really not much at all. All we're doing is we're coming off of the edge of the road. We're coming in just to create a high point so we can keep the water from going out into the road, even though there's a catch basin right there. But we're just going to drop down to a low point where we have these basins. So we have a basin in the grass just to pick up any flow. And it's going to go into the basin and detention system with the, that's on the other side, the north side of the driveway there. You'll continue to come up and just go over that hill. And we're basically cutting it a little bit.
Okay. All right,
And then,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike. Stop there for a minute. When where the two stockpile areas are located in the front,
right.
to me that gives the appearance that that's going to be a construction, a lot of activity is going to be going on there in order to
Only just to remove any topsoil or stockpile any topsoil typically, because that's mainly what you're going to have. Or back here, if you're digging a foundation, you'd have stockpiling just for your material that you're digging out, that you're going to just temporarily stockpile. Once the foundations are poured, then you'll be backfilling. But
I
typically,
understand that. My problem with the location of the stockpile is that it's approximately 18 to 20 feet from the residence. I'm
okay.
concerned about nuisance noise and dust and things of that nature.
Well, the soil stockpile, once it's there, it's just going to sit there. Typically for topsoil, it may sit there for quite a while the site's constructed, and they'll use it later on. And then typically you're going to get some grass growing on it very quickly. It's not like they're going to be in there taking material in and out of that pile. Not over here.
I'm not aware, I don't see that in any type of construction sequence that tells me that that's what's going to occur. All I'm saying is that I have a concern about nuisance dust in relationship to its location to the existing residence.
Okay, there's going to be soil disturbance. I mean, you're going to get.
Yes, but it looks to me that when you have two large stockpile areas there, that's where a lot of your excavation activity is going to take place when it's needed. So number one, the material is going to be coming in, possibly, and left there, and then maneuvered around as the project goes forward.
No, that wouldn't be.
Well, nothing in your plans tell me that, Mike.
Well, I'm just telling you, that's a soil stockpile for topsoil. You can't get specific and say soil stockpile, topsoil, or site material. I mean, we can go crazy and detail, all these things. But I mean, at the end of the day,
well, the only part I'm asking you to go crazy about is the part where it's in close location to an existing residence. And I would ask that you look at that.
I mean, I'll remove it. I can make this one bigger.
And what does that accomplish?
It keeps it further away from parcel A, 11 Good Hill.
I think the majority of the activity and storage of stockpiled areas should take place to the rear of the property.
I don't disagree with that, and that's where the majority of the work's going to be done. I mean, there'll be stockpiles probably out in the parking lot temporarily.
Well, then put them out there.
Yeah,
The activity should take place to the rear of the property. That's my opinion.
okay.
Thank you. And one other thing I wanted to just check, Mike, what is the width of this driveway? Or is it's a driveway, right? It's a driveway,
Right, it's 24 feet.
24 feet wide? All right.
Yeah,
And
I did label that because I know we had talked
Sorry.
about it. And I did add, totally forgot about this, Beth, but I added the cross section.
that was my next thing, next comment I was going to make. I was going to thank you for adding the cross section, number one. I appreciate that. One of the commission members, and I can't remember who, maybe they could pipe in, somebody mentioned about getting a clearer picture on the elevations, the height of the building in relation to the building in the front.
I think that was Bob.
Bob, did you want to explain what you were discussing? What you were
I was
looking for?
discussing it when we go out there for a site walk, and I think we need to be aware of how much higher this building is going to be over the existing house in the front. I would like to see something similar to like they do when they put a tower up, you know, a cell tower or something.
Well, that's what we have here, Bob. It's not any higher than the building in the front. It's lower. So you're about, the top of the roof on 11 is roughly 560, and the top of our roof is somewhere around 543.
So the building in the back is going to be lower than the building in the house in the front,
Correct.
and any existing house in the area.
I don't know about 5 or 7, but anything 11 and south of that is going to be much, much higher. Because Good Hill Road goes up quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. From just, this is Joe from Wright Pierce again. Yeah, from Michael's the profile he put on there. Essentially, the peak of the roof of the proposed buildings would be roughly about the ceiling of the first floor, essentially in 11 Good Hill Road. It'd be about, basically top of door, top of that, somewhere in that top of door, top of ceiling height on the first floor of 11 Good Hill. Would be about, if you draw a straight line across there, that's about where it works out.
Okay, wait a minute. This isn't making any sense to me, what you're saying, Joe.
Sorry.
Mike's saying this is below, and you're saying that the top of the roof is at ceiling height of the first floor?
So
you are going to see it.
If you look at that, if you try to draw a line kind of where Mike has his cursor hand right now. Yep.
Yeah.
He's a little low, and I think I'm losing off my screen a little bit. That the height's a little bit on the left, but I think because it's a little over 540 is the peak of the 9 Good Hill roof, if I remember. Yeah. So
it's like between 543, let's say.
Yep. And that puts it in about, and you can see over here 543. So it puts it in about that where Mike's hand is right now. That's about where the roof of the peak of the roof line of that proposed building would be at about that height. So it'd be about, if you walk out the back door of 11, it'd be about essentially eye level with you roughly. If you walk out the back door of 11 Good Hill.
So you will see the peak of the roof when you walk out the back door of 11 Good Hill. Is that what you're saying?
Assuming that there's no trees or any other screening in the way, that would be, yep. And certainly from this, if you're looking out the back second floor or third floor window, you'd be looking down.
Right.
If you look down, you'd be looking down towards that building, again, depending on what screening of trees is on that little ridge there. Yep.
Okay, Bob, do you still want a balloon? Are you good?
I'd still like to have a reference out there in the field of you know, we go out in the field and look at that. We see where the house is at 11. We have to judge where the one is in the back. So I would like to see some indication, some, you know, indication of, you know, what the vision is going to be out of 11.
Okay.
Can they do that? I don't know. Will they do it? I don't know.
Okay. Well, that brings us back to where we started, and that is a site walk. Mike, have you talked to your client, or is your client available to address or say yes, the property is able to be traveled to go in the back and look at the different areas that the commission had asked for to be staked out?
Yeah, I have no answer on that. I don't know if he was talking to Neil about that, or if he wants to just give an opinion or chime in on that. But it's up to him.
Okay.
He's got to commit to it. So
Could I say something? I think it was very discouraging for all of us when we came out on Sunday morning, thinking the property was going to be ready for us to do a site walk, and people rearranged their schedules, went to church later. And the applicant simply didn't do what was agreed to be done, which was to mow the property so that we could walk out there. We have people worried about poison ivy, about ticks, about Lyme disease. So what I'm suggesting is, once that property's mowed and you want to come back to us and let us know it's ready, then we'll work with commission members to try and pull together a date that we can come out and walk the site. But I think most of the commission members, if not all commission members, want to do a site walk on this property, but we will not step on it until it's cleaned and mowed.
Okay, well, Pat, I don't hear anything or hear a response from the applicant, so I think I've covered pretty much everything I had to speak to you about tonight in regards to other departments. If you want to open it up to the general public for their comments.
I will. All right, we'll now take public comments. You can raise your hand at the bottom of the screen, and please give your name and your address and then ask your questions. Once all the questions have been asked by the public, then the applicant will come back with the responses. Beth, are you seeing any hands?
David?
I'm seeing a hand from Penny Kessler at the moment.
Hi, everybody.
Penny, we're doing the
No,
public
no,
right now.
No, I understand. Could I just request that the screen share be stopped so we can see people?
Oh, yes, of course.
All right, thank you.
I'm seeing a Tori Cornish.
Hello, Tori Cornish, 21 Good Hill Road. I just want to express the width of the proposed driveway being 24 feet long, I believe, being 24 feet wide. The Good Hill Road is 27. So I'm just wondering what the stipulation is between a driveway and a road. Or if that's like a completely different kind of zoning thing, because it sounds like we're working with a road instead of just a driveway into the complex. Thank you. And Ryan Cornish also has a question as well.
Hi, thanks, David. Ryan Cornish, 21 Good Hill Road also. My main concern is there was always a general sense that there was, that they said there was going to be no blasting during this procedure. Now they're talking about blasting underneath the concrete slab for the foundation, and still extremely worried about blasting in the area because there's so many wells, and also still very concerned about them getting the water up to the site on Good Hill, because if you've been on Good Hill, you know that it's a ton of slab everywhere, and there's a ton of rock, and you're gonna have to blast. And with all of the wells in the area, it's a massive, massive concern. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I am seeing a Teague.
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to reiterate, I'm Mark Teague, number 11, Good Hill Road. I wanted to reiterate what Ryan was saying about, we're not talking about what's going on going down the street as far as blasting. And I know we talked about the back area going on slab, but, what about bringing the sewer line down the road? And I appreciate the site chart that you guys made up there for the sight line. So I'm really looking forward to the walkthrough. I believe I would, some kind of privacy fencing or something. I mean, now, you just talked about it, that 26 cars in the back with headlights and all this stuff. So, I just didn't want to hear the cars and alarms and everything all day and night. And my property, I'm looking at the plan and it says retaining wall, anything over 3 feet will be required by engineer, but is there any determining? I know, Bob, I really appreciate what you're doing with the retaining wall. Is there anything, say how high that retaining wall is? And is there any kind of fencing or anything on that wall? That's all I got, thanks.
Thank you. David, are you seeing anyone else?
I am not, Pat, and I'll just give out a general reminder again. If you bring your cursor to the bottom of the screen, there's an icon that says participants. You can use that icon to find your name in the participants list, and you can select your name, and that lets you raise your hand. If you are participating in this meeting via phone, you can press *9, and that allows you to raise your hand by phone. I'm seeing a Frankie V, Pat.
Yes, hello. It's Frank Conti, number 5 and number 7. I just wanted to comment about the well Pat brought up earlier. My well's 185 feet for the record, and it's certainly a concern about, water that's being put into the ground over there. In fact, I had to have that well drilled because the original well was destroyed when Costa and Sturgey and King came up and did the original construction. So that's definitely a concern of mine. And the other thing was, as I mentioned in the previous meeting, light spillage off the property. I'd like to know that there isn't going to be light spilling out 24 hours a day, or, after dusk, of course, and causing a nuisance, due to that. Have they done any photometric drawings to show the light spread that's going to come off of that property with poles and building lights and whatnot? So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a Richard Mould.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, no, this is Allison Mould. I'm using my husband's computer, 10 Good Hill Road. I still wanted to just repeat what we said at the last public hearing, which was our concern regarding the public health and safety in terms of the traffic and what's going to happen on this very quiet dead-end street regarding the addition of 11 new units, 26 parking spaces. How is this going to affect the children that are walking up and down the street with buses? This is a very high traffic zone in terms of Taylor Avenue, and Nashville Road. That 3-way stop sign intersection is a constant source of panic as a driver and a mother. I see people blow that stop sign all the time, and Taylor Avenue is a very high speed zone, even though it should be 25 miles per hour. So I'm extremely concerned about the safety of myself and my family, as well as my neighbors. And just wanted to bring up the concern as well from before about snow plowing and what's going to happen with these 26 cars in the parking lot and where they're all going to go, if they're all going to file onto Good Hill Road, and what that means for all of us trying to get up and down to our residences.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Pat, could I ask Allison a question in regards
Absolutely.
to
Sure.
school buses? Allison, does the school bus presently go up Good Hill Road now?
No, it stops at the base for the Berry, Rockwell, and Johnson schools, although they're changing all the routes because of the new school configuration. But what's happened is Berry, Rockwell, Johnson stop at the bottom of Good Hill, but high school has always stopped at the intersection of Taylor and Nashville.
Taylor
For
and
my road.
Oh, okay, so the high school doesn't go to Good Hill.
I believe they stop at that three-way stop sign. My
Okay.
daughter is not in high school yet, so I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But I do know Barry, Rockwell, Johnson all stop at the bottom of Good Hill.
Okay, and do you know why the buses do not go up Good Hill Road?
I honestly don't. I've requested that over the years since my children started kindergarten. We certainly have a great cul-de-sac at the top, so they've just never done it.
So when you have small children of kindergarten, first grade, second grade age, you all either march down the hill and wait with the bus for them
Right.
with the bus.
Exactly.
Or in the
We have
wintertime,
to
you're
be
out there
there.
in your cars.
Right. We have to be there with our children for the elementary buses.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm seeing a Robin Gerety.
This is actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Rich Gerety, Robin's husband. 13 Good Hill Road. Just want to emphasize myself too on the safety aspect for my kids. I have a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 8-year-old. And, you know, being the age and now starting of school, I'm very concerned about that bottom end there where the kids have to wait for the bus. You know, is there any kind of sidewalk looking to be brought up or not brought up, especially on the Taylor side, from a safety aspect? Also, as far as the roof line, I know we're talking about the roof line for 11. You know, me looking over that property there, looks like those buildings do butt up pretty close to my rock wall under my ledge. I'm just curious what kind of height I'm looking at that I'll be looking at over off of my deck. If there could be maybe a balloon put there as well. And also, is there going to be any kind of staking in place so I can see the property boundary lines as they stand between myself and that lower property there? And we have, you know, more questions from last time, you know, with the impact to the sewer lines, you know, by adding all these additional units into that, is there any impact on the size of the sewer lines that are in place for the current residential houses? And does that need to be increased for us further up the hill to prevent blockage down the road? And that's all I got for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm seeing a Timothy Schultz.
Yes, thank you. I live at 14 Good Hill. I just have a question about the impact of blasting and working in general in the area. If anybody has considered what happened last time that such work was done in this area. A couple of winters ago, we experienced a complete change in the water flow, and it came down rushing from somewhere nearby where that new development was and created in a bad winter basically inches of ice. And I don't know what the town had to do to fix that, you know, what happened, and I'm not an expert to know what caused, but it happened suspiciously close to the time of that development. And I just don't know if people are asking the question about if water tables can be altered, you know, to create the same kind of thing. We didn't have a very bad winter this year, so whatever mitigations were done, we didn't test them out. We haven't seen if they've worked. We didn't get a winter that showed us that that's been solved. And I personally have a concern that further blasting, water table disruption, whatever caused the first thing could happen again. And that was a nightmare because the buses couldn't come up and everything. So I just ask that people come up with a reasonable explanation and assurance, or at least an investigation to make sure that doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marianne Kola.
Hi. I live at 17 Good Hill Road in Bethel, Connecticut. And like I share many of the concerns of my neighbors. In my case, I don't have any young children, but I do have a dog that once in a while gets out and likes to run down the block. And there's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot more traffic. I'm also concerned about the children who will be living in this new development if it happens. You know, you've got 11 two-bedroom units, which means if you have one child per unit, that's pretty reasonable. And where are they going to play? You know, again, it's traffic issues, it's getting to the school bus, it's the ice on that road. I don't know. It just seems like a very unsafe situation because it's too many units scrunched into too small an area. And I just, you know, in my opinion, this should not be built. And that's it.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Rich Gerety again.
Hey, sorry, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Yes.
Rich Gerety, 13 Good Hill Road. Just a quick question, because I'm pretty new to all this stuff. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions raised between this meeting and in the previous public hearing that you had. At what point do we get answers to all these questions that we're asking, and when will those be addressed? That's my question.
We're hoping to get some answers to you this evening. David, do you see any other hands up?
At this time, I do not, Pat.
Okay, then we'll turn this back to the applicant if you'd like to go over the questions that were being asked that you can answer this evening.
Sure, I'll start by answering the question with regard to the width of the driveway or road, but this is considered a driveway. Any access from or on private property would be considered a driveway. Anything that would be on a town property would be considered a road. And 24 feet wide is what's required, and it's probably a little bit excessive for two-lane traffic, but that's what the requirements ask for. With regard to the blasting, I think we've talked about that quite a bit. As far as on-site, we don't expect any blasting. And if there's any rock removal, it'll be done by hammer. I don't know about the water line, but I can say that the sewer line was run up the street, and that's much deeper than what the water line has to be. So hopefully that's not an issue there. With regard to fencing, yes, there'll be fencing or actually guardrail on top of the retaining wall as required by that'll be identified by the structural engineer. And we did do photometrics. We do have that on the lighting and landscaping plan, and we did show out towards the road. We kept those light posts down low just to kind of tone it down. We don't feel we need a lot of light out on the driveway, just a little bit in case somebody's walking in or into the site from the street. They'll have some lighting to find their way, as opposed to, you know, not really needing it for a vehicle, but more of pedestrian traffic. And so that's why we kept those at only 8 feet high. As far as staking, the buildings are staked out. I don't know if the property line was staked out or if there's any pins that are out there, residual pins from previous surveying, but certainly the buildings are staked out. And the sewer line, I believe, is an 8-inch line. It has more than enough capacity for the service of the existing homes on Good Hill and the 11 proposed 2-bedroom units. And I can't really comment on the change in the flow due to some other development. I just don't know the details of that. And I think that was about it. And just,
there was a question about snow plowing.
Oh yeah, snow plowing. I did respond in writing to that, and that they'll be pushing snow into the islands and then along the driveway. I actually did move the landscaping, the proposed landscaping, a little bit further away from the edge of the driveway, so they can push and pile more snow along the driveway. And then at some point, if there's too much snow in the parking areas, they'll have to just truck it out. And that's what happens when you get excessive amounts of snow.
If I may, Mr. Mizuko, you weren't very specific about the fencing, height in particular. I believe Mr. Teague was worried about headlights shining into his house. So could you be more specific about the fencing and the height of the fencing and what it's going to be?
Yeah, we haven't really gotten that far in terms of, again, I was more letting the structural engineer determine whether or not a guardrail or a fence needs to be in place. But again, we could take a look at, we tried to do screening with evergreens, but there was a comment about the size of those and having its effect on the retaining wall. So we reduced the size of the plantings there, but we can take a look at if there is a guardrail that's required. We could also supplement with a fence for some screening, but I'll have to talk to the applicant about that.
And Mary Ann Kula had a question about where are the children going to play?
Well, they can play up in the woods in the area to the southern end of the site. You got that whole area from.
Can you show us where that is?
I was going to say, Mike, too, if you bring up the plans in terms of showing that, you could probably also show the retaining wall elevation that you had done, and also the photometric plan that you had. I know that was a question before. So
Yeah. So yeah, here's the wall here. That I think is the one in question about providing screen and light blockage from headlamps going into parcel A or 11 Good Hill.
Do you have a height of that wall?
Well, yeah, it's about 3.5 feet at that point.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah. And then, the grade comes up. If you look down here, here's our parking lot. There's the retaining wall. I just show the property line there, and then you've got the grade coming up here. So, but just getting back to, there is an encroachment here from 11 onto the 9 Good Hill property. There's a rail fence there, but you have, the balance of this property is a wooded area for, kids to play and hang out and do whatever.
Is that going to be cleared for a play area?
There was no plans. Originally, we had a play area in the back shown, but then there was some concern with that in closeness and proximity to the wetlands and vernal pool. So they thought that to try to keep the noise down, we would just eliminate the play area that we had proposed back there.
So now you're talking about a play area right next to the Teague property, the Teague home.
Well, if there was any area, then it would be up in here because the grades aren't that bad. And then let me just go to so this is the lighting photometrics. So we have just two higher lights here, and then just post lighting along the units and along the driveway.
I apologize. How tall are the lights?
The lights along the driveway those are 8 foot. And then we have some 7 foot lights just out in front along the parking area in front of the building.
Are they all downspouts?
Yes. And then, as I said, there's 2 taller lights here just to illuminate the parking lot.
And I apologize. Those are the 7 foot?
No, I have those at 16 feet.
16?
16
feet? Where are
right near Mr. Teague's property.
This one here shining out this way, and this one shining out this way.
Okay.
Oh.
And those wouldn't be on 24 hours. They wouldn't be on all night.
I think that was all of the questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike, could I just ask in regards to the lighting, is there any lighting proposed on the building itself? You may have answered that already.
The only thing that would be typically where the door, they'll usually just put a side light for the doorway.
Okay.
So at each entrance, but nothing in the back, as we had mentioned, for the back of the units, because there's no doors, and we tried to keep lighting away from the vernal pool and the wetlands.
Mike, one thing I didn't put in the last letter, I was tempted to, but I didn't. But I just, one thing I wanted to kind of point out to you, it's probably okay, because the way these models do the photometrics is probably fine. But along if you're heading from the proposed building out towards the street, the first light pole on your right, basically right near where the retaining wall ends.
Yep.
There's a really quick drop. I mean, obviously right near that light pole, obviously it's very bright. It's a really quick drop off. It goes from 2.4 to 0 in the next dot, which is generally speaking a pretty quick. I don't know if that's potentially a holdover from, I don't know if there was changing over there with your landscaping or not, but that seemed like an awfully quick attenuation of that light. So I was just, like you said, it's probably something you'll look at, and it's probably the model's doing it just fine, but that was one area I wanted you to kind of potentially look at, just to make sure that the assumptions in that spot are still correct.
Yeah, all right, I can rerun it.
Yeah, just, I don't, again, it seemed kind of odd that it attenuates that fast, but if that's really what it does, then that's what it does.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, I think you answered all the questions from the public, so I would now like to reach out to commissioners. I'll start with Kitty.
I think I'm still not sure about the fencing. A 3-foot fence, I don't think gives Mr. Teague any blockage of lighting at all. And if you're talking about having children playing alongside the property, alongside his property, then I think you'll need some sort of either tree line or some fencing there too. I mean, if that's going to be the play area right off Good Hill Road there, I mean, those children could be going on to his property at any time. And I think for his own safety and for the children's own safety, there has to be some sort of line there, either a tree line or a fence line. And I'd need more specifics. I don't think a 3-foot fence or a 3-foot retaining wall is going to keep lighting out of Mr. Teague's house at all. So I'd like some more specifics about that. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Kitty. Penny.
There is so much here that concerns me. But I'm not, no questions at this time.
Ken.
I've got a couple. Beth, you mentioned this, I'll call it a pollution control device.
Oh, the separator?
Yeah. Could I ask Mike what the additional cost would be to install that? So you can answer now or later?
I don't even know what model, what size. That would just be total speculation at this point.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of concern from the members and the neighbors, and kind of sounds like you're going to need to put that in there. So I think at the next meeting, we're going to need some specifications on that. And I'm just kind of curious what the cost would be for that. Looking at how intrusive the lighting and the overall effect is on the neighbor there, I'm thinking you're going to need at least 50 or 60 8-foot arborvitaes to do some serious blockage. And I don't know if you've got that on your landscape plan, but I think you're going to need that. So I think you might want to think about putting that in there. And Beth, this might be for you, but what's required to have a sidewalk coming all the way up? If we're going to have a lot more kids on the street, we need to have sidewalks. So I'm wondering who's going to be responsible for that.
I would like to spend a little bit more time looking into Good Hill Road itself and why buses are not going up there or whatever. It did raise a red flag, and I will look into that further and give you a better answer at the next meeting, Ken.
That's reasonable. And the last question is, I think we definitely are going to need some kind of green space there. If you've got the arborvitaes and the fence up there, I don't think that's going to be an issue. But definitely going to need some green space because there isn't any here at all. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Bob?
My only concerns are, I am concerned about the pipe going under the building. As far as that goes, you know, you can say all you want if you put it in right, but if it doesn't get put in right, it's a problem forever. Until you probably would break through the slab and fix it. And the other thing is, I still believe we need to go out there for a site walk, and we need to see just exactly what, and have a representation of what the height of this building is going to be and where it's going to be located in regards to the neighbors, not just the neighbor at number 11, but other neighbors that are above this issue. That's all.
Thank you, Bob. Rob Stoll.
Yes, I would echo all the comments thus far, but with what Bob just mentioned, I think the Gerety's property, which is also right adjacent, be interested for the sight lines going north-south as coupled with the ones that have already been provided going east-west. That's all I've got right now.
Thank you. Linda.
Nothing at this time.
Rob Wallace.
I don't have any questions about what's been presented tonight. I just look forward to further discussion amongst the group and the site walk like everybody else.
Okay, thanks so much.
Sure.
I have one more, Pat, if I may.
Sure.
Hey, Rich is here. Rich is here too, guys.
Oh, hi, Rich.
Hi.
Hello. Sorry. Thanks. You want me to go now? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Sure.
So yeah, no, echoing comments from the rest of the commission. I think you know, the important thing is that we're able to get out there and do a proper site walk. So, you know, again, I would just ask the applicant to, you know, do what you say you will do, clean up the site so we can go see it, have a representation of what exactly you plan on doing, because you know, looking at site plans only gets you so far. So, looking forward to that and continued discussion on this.
Okay, thank you. Beth, do you want to set some of the conditions for the site walk now, which is, I think we're going to go with the balloons so we can see exactly what this building looks like up against the residences. And it looks like we have a couple that we have to take a look at.
Okay, well, you've made the request. The applicant is online and he's heard you.
Okay. All right, then that's what we're going
to the
We're going to
department.
request that. We're going to request the mowing, so it's a clean walkway all the way back in. We're going to request everything be staked so that we can get a really solid look at what this property looks like and what the development is going to look like. And once the applicant, I'm sorry?
I did one more thing, if I may, Pat.
Sure.
You know, several residents were worried about blasting, and Mike didn't think that there was going to be any. But, you know, just to be clear, and I think for them as well, if it does come up that there has to be blasting, then the applicant will have to follow state rules. And then there will be surveys and everybody will be
absolutely.
involved. So I think
everybody's house gets looked at.
Know that.
Could I just mention one thing in regards to blasting? I certainly would hope that in this particular instance, there is no blasting occurring because of the proximity of wells and sewer that's located in the area.
Right.
And I would also like to submit for the record, and you can review it the next time. We did have an issue with overblasting on the previous site located at 49 Taylor Avenue.
That's right.
Where we had to do once it's done, it's what corrective measures can be accomplished. But it was noted, and we did have some complications as a result of that.
Thank you, Beth. You're right. I remember that well. No.
So Beth, do we want to schedule our next meeting based on when they can get the site ready for the site walk, or set a date now?
Well, since you haven't been informed as far as the availability of the site, I would recommend that the hearing be continued till, hold on a second, I'm just getting my calendar out. I would say September 7th,
Okay,
which is a Tuesday.
okay.
Council is with.
That September 7th is a Monday.
Thank you. Yes, it is. That's, yep.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong calendar. Hold on. I went backwards instead of forward. September. Okay, so we have Labor Day on the 7th.
Yes.
Tuesday the 1st. We have a regular meeting on the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
I will be on vacation the 15th and the 22nd of September.
All right, so when do we want to schedule this for?
It's really according to your all availability. We do have at least one public hearing scheduled on the 8th of September. We've been trying to hold off and do our regular meetings on one night, so we do get some work done. And these on an off night or on our second meeting of the month.
Okay, if all are in agreement, we can move it out to the second meeting of the month. And what's that date in September?
That's September 22nd.
Thank you.
It works.
Now, also in regards to this, Chuck, we do have extension dates and things of that nature that we are still able to use under our present state statutes. But I don't know when the COVID comes into play. That comes in after we run out of time.
Right. You can use the COVID anytime. You have a 9, Chuck Anders for the record. I think we're supposed to say our names before we speak.
Yes, thank you.
You have 90 days you could use right now if you wanted to. And you don't need the applicant's permission. Other than that, we're in the normal, there's 65 days from, the public hearing has to be completed in 35 days and you have 65 days the applicant can consent to. But you don't need it right now, you can just do it. The issue is that the COVID order expires, I think, September 7th, the period of COVID. And the question is, if you haven't used the 90 days for that period, does it still apply? Because now we're back in the normal time frame. I don't know the answer to that. Everyone expects that it's going to be extended, but I think you're okay if you need. I haven't done the math as to when you open the hearing, but you can either request permission from the applicant to use some of that 65 days. Assuming the September puts you into that, or you can just use some of the 90 days you have to get you there.
Okay, so if we use some of the 90 days that we have to get us there, we still are entitled to use the regular statutory time periods after that?
Correct.
Okay. Then why don't we just use the COVID now? It would be approximately, it looks like it'd be approximately 60 days of it. I will finalize the exact number and post it on the agenda such as the public hearing is scheduled on the agenda now. Because right now we're in the first phase of public hearing. We're at the end of our 35 days. So we would have to ask the applicant for an extension. Instead of asking for the extension at this point, we'll use whatever days are available to us under the COVID, under the governor's executive order to get us to this September 22nd date.
Okay, perfect.
Pat, before we continue this hearing, I'm sorry to interrupt. I see Tori Cornish has her hand raised. I don't know if that's by accident or not, but before we continue this hearing, if it's not raised by accident, would you give her an opportunity to speak?
Yeah, Tori, did you have another question?
Hi, David. This is Ryan Cornish. I had one other quick question regarding the lighting. I just wanted to know what the lighting would be like on the actual building, not the not the street lights per se, what the actual lighting on the building would be like compared to the building on Taylor Avenue.
Mike, did you want to answer that now?
I have to take a look at, I'm not sure what he's referencing to on Taylor Avenue. I'd have to look at that and to give you
Mike,
a,
I'm referencing to the other building that the applicant built several years ago on Taylor Avenue.
okay, I didn't do that project, so I'm
Mike
not
wasn't
familiar
part of
with
it.
it.
I had another question for Mike, just before we get on to the next hearing. I just want to clarify. Mike, when you're talking about the width of the driveway, you were referring to the subdivision regulations, right? How things read in the subdivision and our regs there?
No, I was looking at your zoning regulations.
You were looking at the zoning regs. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're clear of how we're getting to the next meeting.
Well, we're waiting for, I will let you know as soon as we can do a site walk. Okay. Hearing will be continued to the 22nd. I think we made it very clear as to what information is needed. Department-wise, that should give all the departments plenty of time to answer and respond and do the back and forth that usually occurs with an applicant. And hopefully we'll be able to wrap this hearing up on the 22nd of September.
Hey, Beth, it's Neil Marcus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, hey,
We can hear you.
Beth, I could not get into your meeting until just now. I had apparently computer problems.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I missed, I've been, actually, it's interesting. I just couldn't make a connection into your Zoom, but I finally caught up on the telephone, giving up in frustration. But I apologize to you and the commission for missing this, but it sounds like this matter is continued to September?
September 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
Okay, is there, I guess before you leave though, was there any question that came up that I should have been answering for you? Because I'm happy to do it. Otherwise, we'll pick up again on the 22nd.
I think at this point we can pick up on the 22nd, and you can talk to Mike and me, or however you want to do it, to go over
Okay.
whatever needs to be accomplished.
Yeah, again, I apologize. I can't figure out, the interesting thing, just as an aside, for the last half hour, I've been attending the Danbury Zoning Commission meeting on Zoom where I could connect. So there was some connection problem focused on this meeting. I can't figure it out. Okay. Thank you.
Chuck Anders, attorney for the commission, and
Oh, hey.
just, good evening, Mr. Marcus. There's going to be a special meeting, which is going to be the site walk, which will be scheduled at some point before the September 22nd meeting. And notice of that will be posted on the town website. Is that correct? You'll have to do that as a special meeting. Is that correct, Beth?
Correct. Correct.
All right.
Did we
So
lose
this
Nick?
meeting, this public hearing is continued to September 22nd. So moving on, Shelley Woods, LLC, Tim Draper, 9 units, Connecticut State Statutes 8-30G. Affordable housing, 35 days for public hearing, 8/4/2020, 47 Shelley Road. Beth, I didn't see a memorandum from you. Did I miss it, or there is none for this one?
There is none at this point, no.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on. Is the applicant ready to discuss this?
Yeah, for the applicant, if it please the commission, Neil Marcus, Kona Wolf, PC 158 Deer Hill Avenue in Denver, on behalf of the applicant. And basically, when we left the meeting on the 30th of June, there were some issues dealing with the engineering comments that Steve Trinkus is here to address. He has sent a letter, which I'm sure is in the record now, of July 16th, that outlines the response to issues raised by the fire department, the health department, and by the review engineer. So I'm going to let him do that, and I'm not going to try to address the same stuff at this point. I did, however, I'm not sure, when I heard about the comments about Shelley Road and its terrible condition, and I'm not sure if it's in the record or not. Excuse me, I'm sure it is in the record because I picked it up on your website. I did take the opportunity to send a note to Matt Knickerbocker. I put in that letter that it's when Mr. Kraus from Apollo Road stated that he takes his life in his hand to use the road, that I thought that ought to be brought to the attention of the Board of Selectmen. Quite honestly, I also took a ride up Shelley Road, and I didn't quite find it in as terrible condition as the speakers would have me believe. However, clearly, just so that the people who raise that issue, and I'm sure the commission knows, and Beth knows, that the obligation to maintain that road is completely separate and apart from the application. The obligation falls on the Board of Selectmen to maintain all the roads in a safe, passable condition. And there are a number of cases in Connecticut, the most famous of which is called Buttermilk case, which deals with this, but also in affordable housing, the case called Green versus the town of Richfield is one of Judge Berger's original decisions when the Affordable Housing Act was first passed. And again, dealing with the issue of neighbors coming out complaining about the condition of the road, saying that's a reason to deny an application, Judge Berger agreed with the applicant that that's not a reason to deny an application. The applicant clearly didn't cause the problem on the road because the project hadn't been built. So whatever existed was clearly in the domain of the Board of Selectmen. So I've done that. I'm not sure whether the board has done anything, but again, for the members of the public who are concerned, I'd recommend that they continue to petition Matt to work on the problem. Other than that issue, most of the comments that came out of the public hearing, it had very little to do with public health and safety, which are, of course, the issues that we're focused on. There was a question as to why this property was not approved for a subdivision when it was previously applied for a 4-lot subdivision. And to that, I have no knowledge, but a couple of neighbors mentioned it. But the issue here is whether there's a public health and safety issue. And to that extent, you'll note in the police commission's report, there's a suggestion that the commission might want to request a traffic study, which again is a little bizarre with the number of units that we're talking about, to suggest that the construction of this project will add enough traffic to any road in Bethel. This is a pretty small project, to any road in Bethel that would warrant a traffic study. And other applications of multifamily housing, the one that's being built currently on the end of Chestnut Street, more units, didn't require a traffic study. And quite honestly, that's a much busier corner where Chestnut and Nashville meet, South and Greenwood. So I'm just not sure where the police commission was coming from, but they did that in a conditional. They might want to suggest. And if the commission is going to make that a requirement, we're going to ask you to identify the specific public health and safety reasons for that to be done, because quite honestly, we can't. And maybe the commission wants to ask Mike Galante to take a look and see whether he can see any reason, and if he can see a reason, to specify what health and safety issues we're looking at. Because again, it's sort of out of the blue, and it's so unusual for any of the other multifamily developments that have occurred in Bethel of this size or even slightly larger. So those are my introductory comments. At this point, Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am, Neil.
why don't you take over and tell us where you are in response, summarize for the public at least, where you are.
And excuse me 1 minute, David. And David, could you just share your screen with Steve in case he wants to point out anything on his drawings?
Thanks, Beth. I think I'll go through the memo first, but we'll have that option.
Screen sharing is enabled at Steve's discretion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Steve Trinkus for the record. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Southbury representing the applicant.
I'm sorry, Steve, you're not on video.
No, my camera on my laptop is on the fritz. I am all pixelated when that happens, so I opt not to use it.
All right.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
An older laptop and my desktop does not have a camera, so I guess a new laptop is in the equation sometime. So we have comments from the fire marshal. I provided a response dated July 16th, 2020. So we provided a plan that shows the turning movements of the fire truck once he gets up to the top in the units, where he can pull either toward unit A, which is the triplex, or they could pull to the right to one of the other duplexes, easily make a 3-point turn and drive back out the driveway. We basically have an area that's roughly 105 foot square, unencumbered by parking spaces or islands, to turn a 42 foot long truck around, so you can easily do that. He requested an underground cistern. As we do not have public water, we have added a cistern to the plan just before the driveway gets to where it flares out into the units. The minimum turning radius of the aerial truck, which is the largest fire truck in most departments, is 22.5 feet. The inside radius of the roadway is 36, so we're well above the minimum, so there's no issue with the fire truck going up the driveway from Shelley Road. The width of the driveway is 20 foot, which is the minimum required under the Connecticut Fire Code. The 12% grade is a maximum grade. Roads, driveways are always designed on a center line basis. Therefore, the outside of a curve is flatter, the inside of the curve is steeper, but the center line is the design basis. It actually goes back to an old survey book from the 1940s, and it has not changed at that time. It's always the center line. The driveway itself coming off Shelley Road, from the roadway to the property line, it is at 90 degrees for a length of 20 foot. The curve radii on the south side of the driveway, which is where the fire truck would be coming from, is 25 foot. On the exit side, it's 10 foot because it's a dead end at that particular point. Regarding the health department comments, the original site plans that we had submitted were 1 inch and 20 scale, which is the standard scale that we use for septic plans throughout the state. During the wetland review, the conservation district asked to enlarge them, and we did them at 10. I then submitted the original 20 scales to the health department. They were looking for 40 scales, and quite honestly, you would not be able to read the information on a 40 scale. They talk about areas of special concern. Having done septic testing for over 40 years in Connecticut, many of our soils easily fall into that category, which is either shallow bedrock or shallow hard pan. The land of bottomless bank run sand and gravel for septic systems is far and few between at this point. The area of special concern simply means that an engineer must design the septic system, not an installer, and that's what we have done here. The health department also talks in comment number 5 about a type of schist. According to the NRCS Web Soil Survey, we are in a Charlton Chatfield complex, which is a lot of surface rock. We did hit some bedrock in some of the test pits, but all of the systems are elevated above that. So there's no issue with, any type of bedrock out here. The survey also says that this is a lithic bedrock, not the two that the health department calls out. There's 4 wells, 1 for each building, so we do not have a community water system. They fully comply with all of the setbacks, either 25 feet to a footing drain or 75 feet to a septic system, and they're all located in close proximity to the building that they serve. This site is not under either the jurisdiction of the State Department of Health. They handle systems over 2,000 gallons a day, or DEP, which is used to be 5,000 and now up at 7,500. Basically, the duplexes are 2 bedrooms each, so each duplex is effectively a 4-bedroom house. The triplex is 2 bedrooms times 3, or a 6-bedroom house. So we're well under both of those thresholds. There's no variances or waivers of any aspect of the code being requested for this system. Everything easily conforms to the health code. Going into Todd Ritchie's comments from Milo and McBroom, we provided signed sealed plans of the site plans, the stormwater report, the existing condition survey. Those have been and always the record drawings in a land use commission. The PDFs are being provided as a courtesy to the commission at their request, especially in light of the virus. As we had submitted the paper copies at the time, the electronic ones originally were submitted to the land use office. Todd could as easily ask David or Beth to send him a set of plans. For the building elevations, yes, while the footprints are different, the footprints on the site plan govern because all of the elevation drawings, the purpose of them is simply what does the building look like? But the footprints on my plan govern. The architecturals are simply the elevation and not what the footprint or the floor plan of those units are. We added footing drains as requested by Todd to the plans. I spoke with Tim. None of the units are going to be handicap accessible, so that removed the handicap access, that removed the handicap spaces. We added 1 walkway and an island where it was missing to go to the front door. The dumpster and recycling bins are rolled out onto the driveway for pickup by the truck. The truck is not turning to come and reach in and get them perpendicular to that. I've done many 8-30G in much denser areas in Stanford and Westport, and this is how the garbage guys work. They roll them out and they dump them and they roll them back in. The transformer location is conceptual only. Eversource, at the time we go for permitting, will tell us where it is and what measures to protect it are necessary. They're in charge of that, not the applicant. It was inadvertent that the well layer was off. It's been turned on, so the wells are now on the site plans. A grade to drain swale is a very simple slight excavation into the ground to simply intercept surface water from above and direct it around a system. It's commonly used above septic systems. We have shown the slight grading for that, but again, it is a simple grading issue along there. Additional catch basins aren't needed because we're running 200 to 300 feet, which is standard between the basins. Todd had a question about the HDPE pipe. It is very flexible and it has been installed on curves before. I've had several projects that we've actually done that, but it can also be installed straight between the 2 catch basins, 3 and 4 on the plan. It doesn't really matter. As long as the vertical alignment of the pipe is on a consistent slope as specified on the plan, the water doesn't care if the alignment is curved or not. Under number 17, we did extend the retaining wall with top and bottom elevations as Todd requested. The riprap on the spillway, I gave him a little detail that the soil on the inside slope actually goes up to the top of the riprap. So the riprap, the top edge of the riprap, which is our spillway elevation, that's the only place the water can go into it. I've done this on many other projects. Quite honestly, in reviewing many other plans recently of other spillways, they actually have the riprap daylighting on the side, which I think was Todd's concern that the waters actually could go into the spillway before it reaches the top of it, as far as that goes. As we discussed numerous times during the wetland application, infiltration is not part of this design in the pocket pond. It is a permanent pool. When you have a permanent pool of water, you simply have no infiltration whatsoever. There is a note already on the plan that if we do hit bedrock, it will be over excavated and a clay soil will be placed in there and packed in to to provide a seal to the bedrock. The under 8-30G, we do not have to comply with zoning. We have in many aspects, but that regards the wall heights. I didn't see a requirement for mailboxes in the zoning regulations. There's actually several places it could be. They could all be right on Shelley Road. There could be a one box system up near the units where the postal guy comes up, gets out and puts everybody's mail in. But I didn't see that in zoning at all. This is a driveway. This is not a subdivision road. So all of Todd's comments citing the subdivision regulations are simply not applicable, nor do they raise any public health or safety issues. This is a driveway and has always been a driveway. It's no different than any of the other projects that I have done. So that's the end of my the comments.
All right, Beth, is there anything you'd like to say about this?
Sure. I have a couple of notes that I just wanted to bring up in regards to this application. I apologize for not having time to put it in writing, but I would be sure to have it for you in the near future. David, could you bring up the site plans for me? In particular, I'll just get ready, put it to you that way. In the Google Drive, the Google Drive is part of this COVID experience that we're all going to is the record. And the reason I think that Todd may have been asking for this is that we are in a different world right now. Everything that is located in the Drive, in my opinion, is considered part of the record. The attorneys can argue this point. What I also did was I reviewed every single application that we have. Neil's trying to get in, I guess. Every single application that we have had over the last COVID period, he's back. And every single one has been sealed drawings that were received electronically by the commission. So the attorneys can tackle that if they wish to at a later time.
Well, Beth, let me interrupt you for 1 second on that point.
Now, excuse me, I do have the floor, and I said I'll turn it back over to you guys, and the attorneys can, our attorney's here and Neil is here, and they can do me a favor and just clarify that for me. In regards to the application, in the survey, which the Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't receive, but didn't receive, but fortunately I did have a chance to look at one from the Inland Wetlands Commission, and also in the Google Drive under one of my memos, I believe it says history, it talks about the survey. The survey that's filed in the land records of the town clerk's office it's referred to as file 25, map 41. In regards to this particular piece of property, there is a 25-foot easement to the open space located to the rear of the property. In reviewing the design drawings, and David, could you bring up site plan 1 or site plan 2?
Yep.
The construction of the pocket pond, overflow, elements pertaining to the septic system, and swales with grading intrude within the easement area. In regards to the engineering requests, the engineering responses to our request regarding footprints and architectural renderings. I just want to point out one thing under 830G, that part of 830G is to ensure that the proposed units are consistently similar in structure, content, and aesthetics, so as there's no discrimination between the quality for the affordable units. Again, with this particular site plan, also due to the intricate engineering of the site development, any changes involving separation distances for septics, wells, and drainage could affect the overall development of the site, leading to further encroachment into the wetlands, things of that nature. So it's vitally important to have the footprint of the proposed structures on the site plan. We've received two renderings, both for 2-unit structures. There is a 3-unit complex located on the site plan that is not shown. As far as the changes that could be affected by the footprint, our engineer has said that it shows that there could be there's a possible 30% increase in the footprint versus what is shown on the drawing. Well, when you start placing septics, wells, drainage areas, and things of that nature, that could have a effect on the placement of those structures. It also could affect the health and safety of those possibly living there, and those living below that have wells and septic systems possibly in those vicinities. The other part to that also is dealing with certain aspects, again, dealing with the design drawings. Just for instance, the health department, they wanted a 1 in 40 scale. What is the problem with giving them a 1 in 40 scale? Again, I reviewed several different applications that we've had over the last several months. I point out to you specifically the subdivision at 141, the Bruno subdivision that was done very, very recently, was done at a 1 in 40 scale. The health department requests it, just give it to them. As far as the police commission and their request for a traffic study, I have to tell you, I do have to agree with Neil as to what are they looking for as far as the traffic on the property. But in reviewing that, fine, if they want to know the amount of traffic that's generated from the site, they have the right to do that. But what I would like to do is to see, in reviewing our engineers' comments and the other design engineer, both of who are professional engineers with no traffic or safety, public safety background with those degrees, I feel that we should either use 2 of our previous engineers that we've used in the past, or our firms, Joe Balkis with Vanessa or Mike Galante. And I believe that it's important that we have them address some of the valid concerns regarding the grade, the safe stopping distances, the conditions, requirements that the site could possibly generate, dealing with the safety of those that will be living there and the safety of those that are downhill from this particular project. I believe that safety is an issue under 830G, and I do have concerns based on our 2 engineers that have been presenting opposing views regarding this. I think the only way to resolve it is to have a traffic consultant used by the commission, and I would request that the commission consider giving this, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought, and it's dark here, and it's very hard for me to read my notes. What I would like to do is see the commission agree with me and consent to use the section of the regulations that we have under 8-10E to hire a consultant to review this application and pertaining to the actual driveway, accessway, roadway, whatever you want to call it, and the safety and possible safety and health issues that could result in the construction of it. And that's it for now.
All right, thank you. All right, as this is a public hearing.
Well, can we ask Todd to pipe in if there's a few things that...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sure. Todd Ritchie with Mylona McBroom, licensed professional engineer, for the record. A lot of the comments that I had made under my original review were addressed by Mr. Trinkus. I disagree that there aren't still remaining health and safety issues, particularly related to the driveway, to the dumpster location, and a few other items. Particularly with regards to the dumpster, I don't think it's reasonable to, number one, place a dumpster at a location and facing a direction that is going to be impacting the traffic that comes in and in and out of the site. I don't think it's also reasonable to think that somebody's going to drag a commercial-sized dumpster into the roadway of a 5% road and not have that dumpster start to roll down the driveway. So those are a couple of issues related to the dumpster location. I think it needs to be relocated into a spot that the garbage truck, commercial truck can come in, maneuver, receive the trash and lift it, or whatever type of a truck that would be used for this particular property, and then be able to maneuver off-site. As far as the other issues specifically related to safety are, I mean, this is a 850-foot driveway that has a 12% pitch for almost the entire driveway length around pretty tight curves, and it's just continuous without any relief of flattening or any way for a vehicle to have much room to negotiate any hazard. 20 feet wide is certainly a minimum for a 2-lane travel in opposing direction. I would argue that more would be much safer in this case when you're considering weather conditions, snow removal, potentially children walking down the driveway to go to the end of the driveway for bus pickup. I don't think a bus is going to be going to the top of this driveway to pick up the kids. It's a private driveway. So
excuse me, Todd. Do you know of anywheres around in this area? I don't know how familiar you are with this area where you could see like a steep hill or something.
No, I mean, I don't know what you're asking as far as a comparable grade. Is that what you're asking for?
Something that's like over at Fairfield Hills. Like, you know that big long road there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had this discussion that when I actually go home from meetings, that when we had them at Town Hall, when you go down through Fairfield Hills, the DOT has, it's a state road, put up signs that warn you that it's a 9% grade going down that road.
And that's only a 9% grade, but it seems so much.
Yes. Well, DOT's, if you look in their roadway design manual and you look in the chapter on safe stopping distances or, sight distances, they have tables that show standard distances for certain speeds and certain grades, whether it be up gradient or down gradient. And the limit of the maximum grade is 9% in their table. It's not to say that other calculations can't be performed to determine what the stopping distance, sight distance is required, but typically DOT doesn't design new roads, at least beyond 9%. So that, I mean, that's just for comparison as far as grades go. But yeah, as we've discussed before, I mean, 12% is a significant grade, especially when you're talking about all weather conditions, whether it be rain, snow, sleet, hail, anything. So leaves, wet leaves on a driveway can also be a concern. So some of the other issues related to the driveway were just sight lines, which have been added to the drawings, but it doesn't seem like the survey extends far enough to determine whether there's obstructions. I noticed that one of the sight lines that goes into the south actually goes right through a utility pole. You would also expect there's going to be, on the issue of mailboxes, signage associated with the development are all potential sightline obstructions, which is why they're important to be shown on the plan. Also, the grade coming into the driveway is beyond what is typical for sort of having a flattened slope to be able to position yourself and stop at a driveway. I've referenced the subdivision regulations for different criteria for the commission to consider, simply because you don't have specific detailed driveway regulations, and partly because you don't have a lot of these types of sites where you would need them and that they would apply.
Well, usually, basically, our driveway regulations are made to serve one single family home on one lot.
In this zoning district.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
So with that being said, also along this driveway, a lot of the grading comes right up to the curb line and it's sloped away from the curb line. There's not a lot of a shoulder off the curb line. So you have issues like, you know, if for instance, if a vehicle were to go over the curb, would it be able to regain control? Should there be guide rail there in order to prevent a vehicle from sliding down the slope or continuing down the slope, as it would be prevented by having the guide rail? Also, sight lines going around curves. Is there enough distance to see a clear view as they're negotiating this driveway and traversing up the driveway, to be able to either going up the driveway or coming down around the curves, and with the walls and with potentially having guide rail, because I feel that that's something that needs to be evaluated. Is there going to be adequate sight lines to be able to, if there was a child bending over to pick up a backpack, if there was an animal that ran out into the driveway, if there was anything that would be a stopped car, a disabled car, that somebody would have a chance to safely stop in those instances. You have to keep in mind this driveway is it's a two-lane, two-way travel driveway, paved, 20 feet wide, commercial catch basins, commercial curb. It's curbing. It's going 850 feet on a 12% grade. We could say it's not a road, that it's a driveway. You can call it whatever you want. It needs to be safe.
Thank you. Was there anything else, Rich? Todd, I'm sorry.
I think that's pretty much it. I think just a recap, you know, the issues of guide rails, safe stopping distances, you know, maybe that relates to the width of the driveway as well. Having enough shoulder, even like if you have two vehicles passing on this driveway and there's a child, you know, walking on the driveway, do they have somewhere that they can go, have refuge off of the driveway? You have to keep in mind that this driveway is also going to be, it's 9 units. It's going to have 9 families, 9 friends of families for 9 families. It's going to have delivery trucks, you know, Amazon coming to 9 different units. It's going to have a garbage truck coming up. It's going to have other potential deliveries or maintenance vehicles and all of that. All of these vehicles in all weather conditions, all scenarios, need to be able to you know, travel safely on this driveway, considering you know, the residents and you know, guests, and also anybody general public.
I have a question about the 12% pitch. We definitely know that's the number, and the only reason I'm asking is because the fire marshal was questioning it. He felt it looked more than 12%.
That's the measure. As Steve mentioned, 12% along the center line. I mean, we could argue whether this is a driveway or a road, but I've never seen, you know, most driveways that are maybe 12 feet wide for a single family residence. There's not a crown in it. It's typically not pitched to 2 sides. It's usually just pitched to one side or another, because it's simply 1 lane or just over 1 lane, where, you know, you really only have one, you know, family to be concerned about. But in this case, you have a crowned road around curves, as he mentioned. The slope on the inside of that curve is going to be steeper than 12%, and that's, in some cases, that's your downhill curve. So you're going to actually be steeper than 12% coming around a downhill curve, or vice versa, going on the uphill. But obviously downhill is more significant a lot of times than an uphill curve when you're talking about increase of slope and safe stopping.
Coming down that 850-foot driveway to the bottom, say a vehicle sliding down the driveway, was directly across from that.
What do you?
Is there a property directly across from that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat, Steve Trinkus, if I may, there's opposite this driveway, there's no residence, it's woods and trees. Where this driveway comes out, if you went across the road, you would come in close contact with a tree and not a residence or anything else.
Okay, but it's on private property?
Well, it's approved lots on
Okay. Okay.
the opposite side of the road.
Kitty, excuse me, Pat, Neil Marcus, on the issue of the safety of the roadway, just for comparison, I know Beth asked for similar examples. I live in the town of Reading, which is adjacent to the town of Bethel. And in Reading, you can build a town road. At a town road, you can put a dead-end road in up to 750 feet. So this is slightly longer than a town of Reading dead-end road. You can serve 8 residential lots on a 20-foot wide roadway. And that will become a town road. And you can go to a grade of 12%. So, that's a standard that we could look at as being, and by the way, there are roads like that in Reading. And, to my knowledge, they haven't had any significant amount of car accidents on these roads. But the grade of this road is of course, of our driveway, is less than 12%. We're serving less than traffic than would be generated by 8 residential lots, because single family houses generate more than the traffic that's generated by the multifamily units. And we're talking about a 20-foot width. So I'm not sure that if you want to look at comparable standards, and again, I'll look at some of the other towns around here like Richfield and Newtown, but in Reading in particular that I am familiar with, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion in front of their commission.
Excuse me, Neil, we probably wouldn't be having this development in front of the commission if it was in Reading.
Oh, I've tried, Beth. I've tried. I've gotten the only affordable housing approved in Reading over the years.
But the roads are built that way for a purpose and a reason. And you know it.
But but as I say, the proposal here, again, if your suggestion is that your consultant take a look at that, your traffic consultant, again, we can't identify a health or safety issue. So if you can, the burden is on you anyway, but we can't figure it out. Thank you.
Beth, anything else before we moved out to the public?
No, why don't we go to the public and give
Okay.
them an opportunity?
All right, David, could you please watch for any hands for us?
No hands.
Watching for hands. And I'll just give out a friendly reminder again for people who have just joined this meeting. Clicking the participants tab at the bottom of this Zoom window and clicking your name in that tab allows you to do what's called raising your hand. If you are not participating in this meeting by a computer or a tablet or mobile phone, if you're using a telephone, press *9, and that does the equivalent of raising your hand.
Hey, this is Brendan O'Mara. I don't know if you can hear me, 43 Shelley Road, but that chat is disabled, so you can't raise hands right now.
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, well then I have comments if I'm able to run.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Brendan O'Mara, 43 Shelley Road, with a couple of comments based on some reiteration of things from the last public hearing, as well as some of the things I heard from today. The first I'll start with was there was a site walk at this property. I just want for the record that I happened to be outside taking care of some flowers and invited the Planning and Zoning Commission to walk the property if they needed to, because I would love for everyone to know just how close the well for my property is to this proposed pocket pond, which runs all the way up. It looks like, I'm not an expert on these drawings, it looks like it runs right up to the property line. My property line also, for the record, is full of shot rock and ledge and some piled stones from excavating and building our property 17 years ago. And it also features a seasonal runoff, which runs typically from somewhere in January to April and sometimes May, depending on the weather that we have here. And if there's a pocket pond there and we have runoff, and again, not an expert, but with a tape measure and a map and my site plan in hand, we appear to be somewhere around 53 feet, maybe 57 on the far side from the edge of our well to where this pocket pond would end. Now, I would imagine that a pocket pond that is also fed by seasonal runoff might kind of seep underground and maybe infiltrate our aquifer for our water quality. We've talked before in these meetings, and I'm still not convinced there's a good solution for vehicle runoff. 9 units, we're talking at least 9 vehicles. We're talking as many as 18, maybe more vehicles, trucks delivering, garbage trucks we've talked about tonight. All of this stuff is going to run down a curve, be captured in storm drains, flooded to the pocket pond. This is stuff that's going to end up right on top of my well. And I'm not really comfortable with that. It's a safety issue for my family and our health, both short and long term, the value of the property long term. In addition, I know in the Good Hill meeting, which doesn't seem to apply here, except for that there was questions of blasting, not blasting, hammering. We built this property. We were on at least our 3rd or 4th septic design that had to be revised during the planning and building process for ours because of issues with ledge, issues with underground streams and springs found during construction. And right now, while it probably complies with whatever required distance the leaching fields are, we couldn't do leaching fields on our property. We had to actually put in a commercial gallery system. We have a single family residence with 100 feet of 4x4x4 concrete galleries that we had to do just to make sure that we were containing water. I have over 100 ton of crushed stone and a custom drain put in at additional cost uphill of that. So whether you're blasting, that makes me nervous for fracturing ledge and having things run down directly uphill of my well. Whether you're not blasting, it's on top of ledge, which means things are going to run on top of the ledge downhill of my well. And then if you're hammering, same issue with fracturing rock. So right now, as a homeowner and a property owner with my family and my family's health, I'm looking at a pocket pond with vehicle runoff, salt and snow runoff, and whatever adjacent to my well, and a septic system uphill of my well. And apologies to Mr. Neil Marcus, who didn't seem to think there were any health and safety issues based on the last hearing, but that seems pretty important to us here, living right next door to this property. In addition, I know Mr. Ritchie had given some good dialogue about the grade and whatnot, and I know there were some questions about what's across the way, but if you look at the curve of this, and I can't really read the grades really well, I'm not an expert at seeing these things, but sure looks like if someone comes slip sliding down this hill and hits a curve, they're gonna kind of jump a curve and go right into my property, or at least maybe into that pocket pond, which is a safety issue for the future owners, as well as, again, I don't want a vehicle leaking anything into an area that's part of my well. And then finally, I would like to just say, it's not a big deal because it's one light and it's on a house, but I can clear as day see a spotlight on the southeast side of 49 Shelley Road. I'd love to know what the lighting design is going to look like for 9 units that are facing the largest window on our property to see if there is light pollution as a consideration, because it's not something that you can clearly define from just looking at the plans on the Google Drive. But, it's really an overall sounds like a big impact into the, just the quality of living at our property, and most importantly, the health and safety of our family. So I'm hopeful that when I did invite planning to walk our property, they were able to location of the well, maybe walk to where the septic areas were going to be and see, because our property is at an angle, it's not a perfect square cut into Shelley Road. The line, if you're looking straight at our house, kind of fades from left to right. So this septic area, and there's more than one septic area, are designed to be directly uphill of our septic. And the pocket pond is directly adjacent right up to the property line and right into a place where there's a seasonal runoff. So thank you for listening to my comments. I would love to hear the answer to these.
Thank you. David, are you seeing anyone else?
Mr. A. John Kraus.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
John Kraus, 40 Apollo Road, Bethel, Connecticut. Again, I joined the last one. I am not in the area of Shelley Road. I'm on the other side of town, but I do have some comments on the matter. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Marcus for pointing out that Reading is a town adjacent to Bethel, and that their zoning laws have nothing to do with Bethel, Connecticut. So that was nice. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Marcus. I also appreciate Mr. Marcus taking a trip down Shelley Road once to show that he wasn't afraid to drive down the road. It's strange because when Mr. Trinkus was speaking, I had to step out of the room, and my 21-year-old daughter asked me what I was doing in my office, and I said, blah, 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 Shelley Road. She knew what I was talking about. And I said just the other day she was going to visit a friend down off that road on Racebrook, and she was coming down the road, and the second property, I believe, on the left is a property owned by now I'm blanking on the name, but by a family in that she knows, and they were pulling out onto the road going right, so opposite direction of her, and they both didn't know what to do. So, you know, one pulled over, the other pulled over, but the two of them weren't going down that space of the road at the same time. So 22 feet, I doubt it's 22 feet, but, you know, if there's surveys that say there is, that's great. I mean, I have a question about who decides if the grade is 12%. This seems to be a lot of talk about, well, the developer says it's less than 12%. Beth is looking at it saying, wow, it looks like more than 12%, and so are other members. And the fire department says, wow, it looks like more than 12%. So who decides whether the plan is 12%, and what happens if it's built and it ends up being 12.5%? I don't know. I'm just asking as a citizen and a taxpayer in Bethel what the process that goes on there. So I also hear that there's a social distance march ready to go on the adjacent property that I believe is owned by the town of Bethel. I'm not really sure what it is. It must be a conservation property. With about 85 people socially distanced this Thursday to look at the property from the town side. And just because there's been a lot of talk about this development on the edge of not only a supply of water to the town of Reading, but as a budding neighbor to open space that the town owns. So there's a lot of citizens that are going to take this and see for themselves. I think that's it. I do want to reiterate the fact that Shelley Road is, whether it's up to the selectmen or up to the planning and zoning or up to the developer, if you're going to put more cars and trucks on Shelley Road, it's going to be dangerous. You know, it's nice that that's the selectmen's problem. If that's the case, it's good for the developer, but it doesn't matter if nobody does anything about it. And why would an application to build on a road that is a problem be allowed to proceed when there is some acknowledgement that the road is hard to travel right now? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. David, are you seeing anyone?
Sean Toland?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Sean Toland, 10 Kiln Court. I mean, I guess I just reiterate that last point in the safety of Shelley, where it is health and safety, regardless of you're going to impact the traffic by, you know, cars that are Shelley Road where there's limited houses at the moment. You're basically increasing traffic over 100%, and it's quite dangerous coming out of Lime Court, not having line of sight into you just can't see coming from the very there. So when you're increasing the traffic would effectively 200% or 100%, and cause it's potential and safety issue. You know, who's responsible for it. It's an issue that concerns, safety in there made around. If you're
Mr. Tolan,
in the driveway.
Mr. Tolan, it's very difficult to hear you and understand what you're saying.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. What I was saying, if you didn't hear me before, what I was saying was it's a health and safety issue in terms of regardless of who's responsible. You're increasing traffic significantly from that part of Shelley Road coming up, and if you're coming out of Limekiln Court, you can't see cars coming very well at all out of that area, and you're going to increase traffic significantly. So it's a health and safety issue from that perspective. And then I think it was Mr. the gentleman who works for the engineer, Todd, who mentioning on the pass child to safety.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tolan, you're breaking up again.
He's having connectivity issues.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. How about now, or is it? No? Okay, sorry. I guess if you can't hear me, sorry. I guess we end it. But it's just the health of the road is my concern.
All right. Thank you. David, are you seeing anyone else?
Todd has his hand raised.
Yeah, David, thank you. I just want to bring up one more issue just as a reflection on the amount of traffic generated just by the construction activity. I think it's important to understand that as well. Looking at the cut and fill calculations that Mr. Trinkus put together, I was able to determine that it looks like there's about 5,300 cubic yards of material that will be removed from the site just in excess soil, and whether it be rock or soil, through excavation and construction of the driveway and associated work with the buildings. So based on a standard commercial dump truck haul volume of about 15 cubic yards, that's about 350 truck trips just for dump trucks for that. There's also be about 500 cubic yards of septic fill that needs to be brought in. So that's another 33 dump truck trips brought to the site. And then there's about another 1,000 cubic yards or 70 truckloads of road-based material for the driveway or road, and about 300 cubic yards of asphalt and curbing. So that's about another 20 truckloads. So altogether, just for the driveway or road, excavation, fill, and base material, asphalt, curbing, and then the work associated with the upper driveway and the septic systems, that's about 475 truckloads of earth removal, septic fill, road base, and pavement materials. And that's in addition to all of the truckloads for delivery of septic structures, drainage structures, concrete, lumber, building materials, etc.
Thank you.
John Kraus has re-raised his hand.
Yes, Mr. Kraus.
John Kraus, 40 Apollo Road. Sorry for taking more time, but after Todd just said that there were going to be hundreds, thousands maybe of truckloads coming in and out of there in a fairly short amount of time, I just want to echo my concern because I'm on Apollo Road and I have toll brothers above me. And I'm telling you, every day, I work at home, like most people do now, but I've always worked at home. It's a constant barrage of trucks. It's insane how many trucks go up and down. And the trucks don't exactly tend to go slowly because they're in a hurry. They have work to do. So, imagining what happens here on my road, on Shelley Road, that's almost unimaginable. And I know it's a difference. I mean, there's 200 units up here. We're talking about 9 units down there. But for the size of the road and the size of the neighborhood, in the shorter amount of time it's going to take. I mean, we've been building up here for 6 years. He's going to have this done in a year. So, you got to compact that time. And realistically, there's going to be more trucks than cars on that road during construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kraus. David, are you seeing anyone else?
Not at this time, Pat.
All right, I'm not sure that I see any questions here to be addressed. I know Mr. O'Mara was worried about light pollution and how close the pocket pond is going to be to his well. I'm not seeing any questions. Does anyone else see any questions that were asked by the public that I may have missed? All right, hearing none, then we will move out to commission members.
Okay, good.
Sure.
I was going to say.
But Neil, did you want to say something?
Point of order. We have some response to the comments. Do you want to wait till the commission members are finished?
I know if you want to address the public right now, absolutely.
Just briefly, I mean, the public and Todd Ritchie as well. Briefly, particularly Mr. O'Mara's concern with the pocket pond. I mean, in reality, that was all dealt with in inland wetlands. And it was a source of a lot of discussion. Actually, it was a source of an appeal that was settled. And, you know, I don't want to think that this commission is now going to revisit the pocket pond that was a hot issue for inland wetlands. Because again, I don't think that there's any health or safety issue dealing with a pocket pond. Mr. O'Mara says because he had difficulty building his septic system, it sounds like a lot of difficulty, that therefore you've got to come to the conclusion that the applicant's septic systems will be difficult to build, which is not necessarily the case at all. But he's also suggesting that there's going to be runoff from the septic. And that's a problem. And here I'll throw it back to Todd Ritchie because he's the engineer. I guess the burden now shifts again back to the commission to say that meeting the state health code for a septic system is not enough in Bethel to ensure that the neighbors don't have a runoff problem. I don't think that Mr. O'Mara quite understands that he's creating the shift here to the town to really challenge the state health code. But again, if Todd, has a feeling that there's something wrong with the state health code, I'm not sure it's going to be resolved here. And I'm not sure Todd has that problem. I'm not going to put any words in his mouth. But if you are going to come back to us and say that we have to address Mr. O'Mara's concerns with septic runoff on the pocket pond, we're going to need some specific issues to look at. With respect to Mr. Krause's application, Mr. Krause's question, what happens if a 12% road turns out to be 12.5%? It gets regraded. It's a 12% road. It's not a 12.5% road. So the answer is we shoot the grades, and if it turns out that it's not the right grade, it gets regraded. So it's not going to be in excess of, this one is 9%. But anyway, the other question is on the increase of traffic. And again, Todd is correct. If you do an analysis of materials in and materials out, you're going to see that there'll be, as he said, 350 truck trips for 5,300 cubic yards of material coming off the site. Quite honestly, I'm not sure what his experience is in construction, but my experience is that most trucks that come in with material leave with material. You don't bring in a whole separate fleet just to come in, pick up the material, come in empty, pick up and leave. You try to basically be efficient because the trucks are expensive to run. But if there are 350 trips, and Mr. Krause thinks it's going to take us a year to construct this project, that's an average of 7 trips a week. Quite honestly, I don't think the project necessarily will be a year, but even if it's done in a half a year, you're talking about 14 trips a week. And again, if we're talking about averages, you operate 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. You're talking about a couple of 2.5 trucks, 2.2 trucks per day. When you look at numbers, they look daunting, but when you actually look at how a site works, it's not all that daunting. Trucks do come in, trucks do come out, but they don't come in mass. They come in usually slowly. And by the way, the trucks have to maneuver on the site. So you can't bring in 30 trucks at a time. They'll just sit around for hours waiting to load and get out of there. So with all respect to the people who comment on the numbers, you really have to understand the construction sequencing and the timing. But at the end of the day, none of this really amounts to a public health and safety issue. Truck traffic can be a nuisance. I mean, God knows how many days last week Chestnut Street was closed for construction, and it was a nuisance because you had to go around it. But, that's not a public health and safety issue. So I'd like to keep those issues in perspective. And I think the commission will, but I'd like the neighbors to keep them in perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a quick comment. Chuck Anders for the record. Just in response to what Mr. Marcus said, Mr. Marcus is correct. There was an appeal of the wetlands, and I was at the second one, and that's probably why I was there, because there was pending litigation. But my understanding of what the wetlands was looking at with respect to the pocket ponds is like all wetlands commissions. What they do is they look on the impact of the wetlands of this development on the wetlands and watercourses. The concern, as my recollection was, that the construction of the pocket ponds would intercept water, the groundwater that is feeding the wetlands. So the concern was, are you going to be starving the wetlands by the location of these things? Because the pocket ponds were not wetlands themselves. So that was what my understanding was, what they were looking on, and they had to be confident that the location of this was not going to, quote, starve the wetlands. So what they weren't looking at is the impact on the neighboring wells or septic system or so forth, which is what I understand what the neighboring is, the neighbor was talking about here. And I'm only saying that just because I don't think Mr. Marcus disagrees with me, is insofar as the suggestion that all of this was covered by wetlands. No, wetlands was concerned about the impact on the wetlands. And there is a wetlands, a flagged wetlands area that wasn't a pocket pond, which is sort of south and over, and that was what they were concerned about.
Thank you, Chuck.
I will agree.
All right, moving on to commission members.
Pat, can I just, before you go on to commission members, I just want to make one comment in regards to what Attorney Marcus was talking, when he was talking about in reference to Todd Ritchie. I have to state, Todd does have a lot of experience in construction. I really believe that you are doing a misrepresentation on him, and I totally disagree with you. The second part of that is that I love your description of trucks coming in and out, but I will have to say, in regards to Shelley Road and the residents that live on Shelley Road, they have already experienced the intrusion of having one driveway constructed with millings coming in at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because they were on sale through the state of Connecticut working on a job. A lot of illegal activity pertaining to that type of traffic going back and forth on the road. So even though it may not be a true safety issue in your eyes, it has occurred there, and I do understand some of their concerns involving that. But really, I mean, Todd knows what he's talking about when he's talking about construction. Come on.
Again, Beth, I don't suggest he didn't. I'm just saying that the proper way,
it didn't appear that way.
The proper way to analyze truck traffic is to recognize that trucks.
How about we leave the conversation to the engineers about that, not an attorney?
That's correct.
Agreed.
Okay.
I just look at numbers.
Is that? I'd say attorneys may not have as much experience with constructions as engineers do.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Nancy, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Nancy.
Good.
Balbo?
Nancy, you're muted. Did you want to say something? You had your hand up.
Yeah, I think I was saying, all right, boys.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good for you.
Sorry.
All right.
That's why I'm muted.
All right, thank you. Kitty.
Okay, I have a question. I've been on this commission a very long time. I have never seen an 830G where there is a septic system, ever. It has always been water and sewer. And this does not have that. And I'm somewhat shocked. Couple of other things. When it comes to that driveway, 20-foot, 850-foot driveway. I don't care. I don't know if it doesn't scare, obviously, Mr. Trinkus or Mr. Marcus, but if I lived there, it would scare me to death, especially in the winter. I live in Chimney Heights, which is a fairly large community with roads that follow zoning regulations. And when we have UPS trucks and Amazon trucks and regular cars and children playing, it can be dangerous with a 26, 27-foot road. With a 20-foot road, I cannot imagine, especially in the winter. And then I'm thinking, you have these, as I said, 850 feet high length before you get to the homes. Then you have children coming down these roads to go to school buses. I think that is a health and safety issue. I really do. Is there going to be any lighting on this road? I mean, let's say during the winter months when children are coming down this road to go to school buses and it's dark. Is there going to be any safety for the children with lighting of any kind going to happen? And then I'm looking at the plans, and I'm looking at the site, and I see nothing. I don't see a landscaping plan whatsoever. Families are going to be living on top of this mountain. Where's the landscaping plan? Where's the green space? I mean, I was up there last Sunday, and believe me, it wouldn't be a fun place for me to go outside and say, okay, kids, let's go out and play amongst the rocks and the fallen trees. No, I'd like to see a full landscaping plan. And I'd like people to think hard and fast about this 20-foot wide road. Now, Mr. Trinkus was talking about some Connecticut rule or Connecticut law that says you can have this 20-foot road. None of Bethel's zoning regs will give you a 20-foot road, a 20-foot driveway that's that wide, that's that long. I'd like to see somebody take a look at that and give me a good answer. And that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kitty. Penny.
Actually, Kitty just brought up what was going to be my biggest question. So I'm good.
Thanks, Penny. Ken.
I'd like to see a more complete set of plans. It seems like there's some omissions and some adjustments that need to be made. That's it.
The plans are terrible.
Thanks, Ken. Bob.
I'd like to go along with the police commission and recommend that, we do have a traffic study, a legitimate traffic study to see what impact, the additional traffic coming out of that place is going to be and the condition of, the road. I agree with Neil. Yeah, it is the town's problem, but it essentially is the people who live in that area's problem once, this thing starts to get planned or get built. So I'd like to see if the police commission and our traffic people suggest a private traffic thing. I would suggest we have somebody do that, and get that done so that we would have an expert opinion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I agree with you. Rich.
Hey, sorry, my dog was barking, so I was on mute. No, I echo the sentiment of the rest of the commission. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of issues involving public safety and health and well-being. You know, I mean, I think that's kind of a left off part of the term that, you know, when we talk to neighbors and we talk to people in the area of developments like this, that we leave out. So I think seeing, you know, and I know we're limited in this phase by what we can see on the plans, but just a set of plans that just kind of explains anything in a little more detail, aside from things that fall into a trap of, you know, Neil can explain it with some legalese and whatnot. That's great. But, you know, I think we need to be able to visualize what's going to go on there, see, you know, what this is actually going to look like, because it will have an impact on the surrounding homes. And I think the public's entitled to that. So as usual, we'll see where it goes.
Thank you, Rich. Rob Stoll.
Muted.
Oh, just had to unmute. Once again, everybody else takes the thunder, but that driveway has me very, very concerned, and I would like to see more data or, I guess, plans instead of just the stuff that we've seen already. That's all.
Thanks, Rob. Linda.
Nothing that hasn't already been brought up. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Rob Wallace.
No questions about what's been discussed tonight, and I agree with everyone. I think there's a lot more information and detail needed, and we'll look forward to seeing that.
Thank you, Rob. All right, now I didn't know if there's anything here that you wanted to respond to. Neil, I was looking at Kitty talking about she's never seen an 8-30G on a septic.
The answer to that is trying to think of where I can take her to see 8-30G housing. I take her to Brookfield where we did one.
Okay, not in Bethel.
And I could take one to actually Reading where we, Reading has so few. It's easy to find the ones that are there. Septic, but where the towns do not have public sewer and water, those are the towns really that the statute was aimed at. It's the towns that have very little affordable housing because they lack water and sewer, and therefore they tend to be on larger sites with septics and wells. But there's no requirement under 8-30G to have sewer or public water. You have to have sufficient septic and sufficient wells to meet the public health and safety, and particularly the public health. But I can, in the smaller towns around here where we have done some affordable housing, we have done it without sewers. So that's just how it's done. And in terms of, you know, the other questions Kitty had, landscaping plan and green space, again, those are not the type of things that we focus on for the affordability, but that's a question of aesthetics, and we'll try to take a look at that. And I can't think of much else on the 20-foot wide, you know, 850-foot driveway. I'm just going through your driveway regs in Bethel, and I don't see that would exceed anything that's allowed in Bethel, but I was just thumbing through the zoning.
No, the length is fine.
What's that?
The length is, our length is much higher than that where you have to stop.
And in your grade, your length and your width for driveways, that's not a problem. As I say, in some towns, they have minor roadways that are dead ends. As I said, in Reading next door, it's 750 feet, but 8 houses. Anyway, it's a town road, 20 feet wide. and up to 12% grade. So I don't see that that presents an issue, because quite honestly, if your driveway regulations didn't allow this driveway, 8-30G would allow us to write our own driveway regulation if it doesn't create a public safety issue. But here, I don't think that there's any reason to spend a lot more time. But then again, there's a question about having your traffic engineer take a look at this anyway. So maybe it'll be reviewed.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay, in regards to the driveway, Neil,
yeah.
When this was originally approved, it was approved for a rear lot, a single driveway servicing a single family home.
Yes.
The regulations that it was based on was written in the early 80s.
Yes.
The reason that it was written back in the 80s, I remember, is unfortunately I was the one that did it. I did it in conjunction with working with the fire marshal and the fire department. The purpose of these length of driveways and these grades of driveways is to serve one purpose only, a single family home for health and safety reasons. Because we had two instances where a driveway wasn't constructed properly, an ambulance got stuck in the driveway, and the other one was we had several buildings off of one driveway. There was a fire call or something of that nature, and they couldn't determine which unit or building it was. Tonight we talk about driveways, we talk about roads. You talked about 20-foot roads servicing for 8 houses. In Bethel, I believe the minimum width is 27 feet, and the commission can fiddle with it if they feel it's not a health safety reason, servicing 4 lots. Also, we have a dead end regulation that says a road can't be any more than 750 feet. And yes, under 830G, you can pick and choose what type of regulations you want to follow. Dealing with, oh, well, we're going to work with the driveway on this. Some of your drainage things, you're using commercial sumps and things of that with the catch basins, and that's something that's more designed for a road. I believe Todd Ritchie also talked about driveways versus roads, that you have a crown in this, whereas a driveway usually doesn't have a crown at the center line. So yes, 830G, you get to pick and choose. But the most important part about the driveway in regards to the application is the safety of it. And I believe that the only way to determine the safety of the driveway, dealing with stopping distances, grades, guide rails, fencing, curbing, shoulders, and things of that nature, is to have a professional traffic consultant engineer review the application. I think you had heard before, I think that's the only way we're going to resolve this, and all of us are going to be feel more comfortable going forward. And I would like to spend some time discussing that with you afterwards. I know you will not agree with me, but I'm going to ask anyways, and ask that under our regulations for the allowance of consultants, we hire a consultant, we request that the applicant reimburse the town for the payment of the consultant, and we go forward.
And Beth, if I can add to that, all the commissioners are all asking for more complete plans. They're not seeing what they want to see.
I think that in terms of the complete plans, that you should be more specific as to what you're looking for, Pat.
Well, I'll have to step back with the commissioners. What are you, I'll go with Rich. What is it you're not seeing on the plans, Rich?
There's just no complete vision. It's very difficult to, I think for commission members and the public alike, it's difficult to use a site plan to imagine what something's going to look like in a completed state. I mean, it's a rough draft, so to speak, would probably suffice. No one's looking to hold, I don't think necessarily hold people to finishes at this point, but an idea, I think this is part of the guise of 830G projects in general, but getting approval we understand getting approval for the site plan is the first step in success for these sorts of applications. But, I think doing the people who are going to be most impacted by its construction, right? Whether or not it goes forward or not. But the people that are closest to it, I think, deserve to see what it may or may not look like.
Thanks, Rich. Rob Wallace?
Sorry, nope. I'm sorry.
You were talking about more details. Was there something specific?
Yes. No, I think there's it's been covered pretty well. I can think of a lot of different details, and being relatively new to the commission, I'm not sure what the full expectation is, but
Okay.
I do feel uninformed.
Okay. Rob
Thanks.
Stoll. Rob Stoll, you're on mute.
Okay. When I look at the 14 pages of drawings that we've got, they're basically just squiggle lines and squares. I'd like to see some rendition of what the buildings are going to be looking like, at least the stuff that, unless I'm not finding it on the Google Docs, I'd like to see more of what this thing is going to look like.
Okay, thank you. Ken.
There was a comment in there about one of the buildings not being exact to what it was going to be. Maybe I didn't hear correctly, but I would like to know exactly.
The comment was that you show a two-unit building, number one, and there was no other. There's at least one 3-unit building that was not part of the architectural renderings. The second part to that comment was we had a discussion about the importance of having the architecture and the footprint on the plan as it's shown by the structure footprint.
Yeah, I would agree with the points Rich made, just in general, especially the sight lines and just much more detail.
Okay, and I know Kitty's looking for the landscaping plan and green space. So Beth, does that give you enough information?
I think it's the
And
applicant.
Neil, does that give you enough information?
I've been making notes. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to continue this public hearing. Beth, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight regarding this?
Yes, I do. I just want to note for the record that we're waiting for some responses in regards to this. One is from the health department. And although we did receive the comments from the engineer, they're dated the 26th, but we didn't receive them till, I don't know, the 23rd or 4th or whatever. So Tom Galliford, again, 2 critical departments that need to review this. And unfortunately, due to COVID, they are both in charge of our emergency management. So they're juggling a lot at this point. That's
right.
again
So
another reason
do you
why
want to set a continue to date?
September 22nd,
Same one, we'll have them both on the same night. Okay.
And I do believe it would be advantageous to the applicant to work with the town and with the 2 departments at the request that they have made to review the comments that we made this evening. I do think it would also be helpful to Tom Galliford if we had this public safety issue with the driveway addressed by another professional expert, such as the traffic engineer specializing in safety and public safety and health. This will help Tom finalize his report.
Okay, thank you, Beth. So again, we'll continue Shelley Woods to September 22nd.
Thank you.
Moving on to our business meeting, I'd like to seat Rob Wallace for Steve.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you, Todd. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Chuck. Take it easy.
Bye.
Good night,
So has
everyone.
everyone had an opportunity to read our meeting minutes of the 14th of July?
Yes, I'd like to motion to approve the minutes of July 14.
Second.
Thank you, Kitty. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is a work session for All Regional Recyclers of Wood, LLC, 104 Worcester Street, site plan special permit. And we had last week during our discussion of this project given Beth a lot of information to take away with her. And Beth has drafted the document for us. Who would like to read it if you printed it out?
I can read it if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bold and underlined. I'll just read it verbatim.
Yes.
Bold and underlined are additions based on discussion of 14 June 2020, 104 Worcester Street. Special permit and site plan to construct an 8,000 square foot building as an accessory use under section 4.3.m of the town of Bethel zoning regulations to process construction and demolition debris as shown on a drawing as, quote, general permit plan prepared for all regional recyclers of wood LLC, unquote, dated 49/21/2018. I believe that's a typo.
That September 21st.
Last revised 5/1/2020. That would be 4/21 possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Beth?
I'm sorry. I was distracted.
Oh, is it 4/21 or 9/21?
For
All regional recyclers of wood LLC dated
4/21.
4/21, thank you.
4/21/2018, last revised 5/01/2020 as prepared by Anchor Engineering Services Incorporated, Mark L. Clement, PE, state license 21694 with the following conditions. Condition 1, the existing fire hydrants.
You don't have to read all of those. You can just indicate items 1 through.
Following conditions 1 through 9.
1 through 12.
I'm sorry.
Actually,
1
it's
through
1 through 12, Rob.
1 through 12. Other standards, stipulations for ENS controls will be added. Reason commission finds that proposed use is in compliance with Town of Bethel zoning regulations for regulated activities located in the industrial zone.
Okay, thank you. And now this was sent out to all of the commissioners this afternoon, so hopefully everyone read it prior to coming to the meeting tonight.
We have the change in number 5.
Yeah, we're going to add that.
Okay.
If I could have a second, please.
Second.
Second.
Kitty, were you first?
I have no idea.
Okay. Yes, down on number 5 for discussion right now is that the second sentence, at the entrance to the site stating that there are no exit, adding the word exit, no exit right-hand turns. So it's just very clear.
At least I knew my right from the left this time.
I'm sorry?
I said, at least with Penny's help, I knew my right from the left.
We all agree.
But like I said, I don't even know what day it is. Can I just add one quick thing to that? Please,
Absolutely.
yeah, please take out the apostrophe in turns.
Oh, right, Ken.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
They're not possessive.
Why?
Pat,
I certainly am, but not for this.
Pat, if I may, I've actually got quite a long list of comments.
Sure, this is what we're here for. It's to put comments against this document.
Okay, first condition 1, typo, if we can just replace SIGHT with SITE.
Okay.
All right. Condition 2, I would like to propose alternative wording for that. What I'd like to propose is the proposed building will be sprinklered with a hard piped water sprinkler system in accordance, and I can send all this verbiage to somebody, but anyway, with a hard pipe water sprinkler system in accordance with National Fire Protection Association standards, possibly to include, sorry.
Hold on for 1 second. Beth, do we go that far or do we just stop at sprinkled because we know what that is?
What we do is we stop with the word sprinkled because any type of sprinkling system is handled through the building department and the fire marshal following this, probably the specific codes that you're mentioning, Rob, but the
Fire marshal's gonna put in what he wants.
We are not the experts. The experts are the
Right.
building and the fire marshal.
Okay. Skip down to number 3. Condition 3, where it says notify the town, I think we should specify that at least 2 business days prior to, that would be in the second sentence.
Notifying the town 2 business days prior to the, go ahead.
No, yeah, the word notified prior to me is kind of what I refer to as a mayonnaise term, meaning it's soft and squishy. And I'd like to put in something a little harder in there in terms of, giving them a time frame.
Beth, have we ever given a set number of days, Beth, or we just simply notify prior to the inspection?
It's usually just notify prior to the inspection.
I mean, are there like legal? Just go through legal review? Don't we? You got to imagine this is a template, no?
Yeah, it's a template. I mean, if I run it,
I just don't want to waste a ton of time going through.
Okay, go ahead. I say no, it's not necessary.
Rob, did anything else in particular stand out?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. What, if I may, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 6 more things.
Come on.
All right. Condition 5.
Excuse me,
just
Rob.
wondering.
Can I make a suggestion? Is it possible for you to email this to Beth? And the discussion then would be a little shorter. Beth, is that possible?
Hold on a minute.
No, we have to accept the changes. The problem is we want to accept it.
I'm more comfortable with the commission going through this because some of these, I don't know what the changes are.
Yeah.
So some may be substantial in nature. So you have
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize. I just was
No
trying
problem.
to be helpful.
Shall I continue?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Condition 5, I'm curious as to the rationale for limiting the length of the vehicles to greater than or equal to 50 foot. And I would almost suggest limiting the lower limit at greater than or equal to 30 foot.
No, we
But
agreed to this
I don't know what the
previously.
rationale is for that.
Rob, we agreed to this previously.
It was the size of the truck.
It was the size of the truck. We had discussed this and agreed to this was going to be the truck.
Can I,
All right.
can I elaborate on that a little?
Conditions.
Wait, let me, Rob, let me elaborate a little bit as to how that came to be. The main reason was the average size of those type of vehicles that would be used versus the average size of the larger vehicles that would be used to transport out. And that therefore that's where the signage verbiage, where the verbiage for the signage came about. It was to base it on an average, and that average was determined by looking at various different trucks that have and excuse me, I'm getting tired, very tired, as all of you are, so my language is failing me, but it's based on an average of those type of trucks that you haul in the containers.
Right.
Yeah, it's a Peterbilt. It's like a standard. There's
Yes.
a standard equation for the size of trucks.
Correct.
Yeah.
But Rob asked the question, so I wanted
Yeah.
to.
No. It totally makes sense. There is some
Okay,
science.
Rob, go
I guess,
on.
is the answer.
Thanks, Beth. In condition 6, I would specify hard copy reports.
I have no issue with that.
Okay. In condition 8, do we need to define holidays?
Yes, because if we don't, they'll do it.
I would say
Oh, you mean, he's meaning Christmas, New Year's?
holidays
Yeah.
are, what staff does is holidays are determined by the calendar, and our excavation and fill regulations specifically talk about holidays. So that's where that term comes from. And I've never had a problem with enforcement dealing with holidays. I mean, I've had problems with people working on the holidays, but holidays are
All right.
holidays.
As long as they're defined somewhere.
Yeah.
In condition 9, I was wondering what exactly is expected in this self-reported report, and do we seriously expect to get anything other than, hey, everything's just great, no problems? And that's kind of a rhetorical question.
Okay. In regards to number 9, as far as the owner says, hey, there's no problems, the traffic, everything's running smoothly, and so on and so forth, that's one thing. But as you know from the participation of the neighbors on Worcester Street, if there starts to become issues with site people leaving and going into the site and things of that nature, we will hear about it. The reason for the bonding and such like that is that's to guarantee that they're going to come back and face the commission. And if there are issues with the turning and things of that nature, and changes have to be made to the driveway entrance or exit to ensure those turns are being maintained properly, that is the purpose of it, really.
Right, and that actually, thanks, Beth. That's a great segue to my next question: is a $5,000 bond sufficient, and is that consistent with similar situations that you dealt with?
I came up with the figure in the town of Bethel. You cannot post a surety bond. Your bonds have to be posted by cash, basically, or a letter of credit. And I've always found when you're posting those type of bonds, it always ensures that someone.
Okay. And then last but not least, on condition 11, what I wrote down was, if a general permit is issued by the applicant by Connecticut DEEP, any proposed / requested changes to said permit will be submitted to the town concurrent with the submission to DEEP. And then I also went on to say, once a general permit is issued by DEEP, does the town have any significant say in changes or modifications to that permit?
I think I reviewed this with the commission before in regards to the general permit. And it's my understanding that local approval has to be received prior to them asking for a change in the general permit. Also, once the general permit's been issued, there have been instances in various businesses here in town where if I feel that there is the activity that's going on is improper, I just notify them and they take it from there.
Okay. Can we put in verbiage that says, you know, if the applicant does in fact get their general permit, because to my knowledge that they haven't applied for it yet because they're waiting on us, but can we require that if they go forward and request a change to that permit, can we require them to, as a courtesy, let us know that they're doing it?
It's my understanding if they were to ask for a change in the permit, that would mean that there would be a change in the amount of tonnage or yardage or whatever is of whatever kind of material that they're dealing in, and a revision of that nature. I'm not sure if it would have to come back to the commission or not, if it's a small amount or a larger amount, but you certainly can put something in there like that then. I'm thinking about it, thinking out loud as we're discussing it. So no, I don't find that unreasonable.
Well, that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Kitty, do you accept the changes and additions that Rob proposed? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Hey, Pat.
Motion carries.
Wait,
Pat,
wait.
But
Pat, can you explain what we're voting on right now?
Beth, do you want to tell him that this is the permit for, this is the new business going in for all regional recyclers of wood?
104 Worcester Street, Rich.
No, I know the project.
It's the resolution. It's in the Google
Okay.
Drive.
Yeah, no, I read it. I'm wondering procedurally what the next. This has been difficult for me to follow with our virtual setting on. When are we making the
Right now.
Right
the
now,
finality
this is
of the decision? Okay, if this is the last decision that we're voting on, then I'm a nay.
Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah. No, clarify. Absolutely.
Why don't you poll the different members and make sure?
Yeah, can we do that so I can get it?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm a yes. Kitty?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Nope.
And Rob Wallace?
Sorry.
Rob, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That was a thumbs up. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
What about Linda?
Well, I seated Rob for
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 members.
Okay, that's it.
All right, and moving on.
So
Planning and
motion passed
Zoning
six-
Department report?
Excuse me, Pat, just to acknowledge for the record that the resolution passed 6-1.
Okay.
Thank you.
We set an effective date on that.
It's a site,
Right.
no.
Yeah, there was.
I think so.
I don't
No,
think-
it's a site plan special permit, Bob. You don't need an effective date. You're good.
Just
Oh,
to
okay.
make sure.
Isn't it usually 15
I
days?
don't want you yelling at us.
Thank you.
They're gonna yell anyway,
Thank you.
Bob.
Good night, guys.
Good night,
Night,
Neil.
Neil. Okay.
No planning and zoning commission report. No.
No?
No department report, not at this point. It's been
Bond
a
release?
while.
Okay.
Is there a bond release?
No.
Public input? BJ?
BJ,
BJ, say hi, please.
unmute BJ.
You're muted, BJ.
I know. No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
BJ.
Good night, BJ.
Night.
Anyone else on the call that has public input?
Please raise your hand so we can tell.
Yeah, raise your hand so we can open it up to you. David, are you seeing anybody?
I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Good night.
Good night, everyone.